Yellow, yellow, testing, testing. Alright, just took a sip of water, and my throat feels a bit clogged. My audio sounds fine, it seems. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Let me pull myself on screen. Hello, everybody. It is I, the one and only. Yerp, I'm here. Alrighty, let's get shit on the road, I guess. Alright, let me open up the Minecraft server. Hopefully it opens soon. Oh, there we go. Alrighty, let me turn the music off. Toilet, 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 toilet. Toilet. Oh, I wanna put some shit on shit. Do I need to crop this? Gosh diddly darn. Gosh diddly darn, why is it so hard to see? Alright, crop the left. Alrighty, we got everything set up. Now let's play some Minecraft while watching video essays.
June 22nd, 1986. England and
June
Argentina are
22nd,
deadlocked in a life or
1986.
death grudge match for a spot in the World Cup semi-finals. And when I say life or death, I mean it. Soccer is everything for these two nations. As Bill Shankly once said, some people believe football is a matter of life and death. I am very disappointed with that attitude. I can assure you it is much, much more important than that. In the 58th minute of the match, Argentina brings the ball forward into the final third. It pinballs
Alrighty,
around
we're back to the
several
game.
English defenders before popping up in the air. England's goalkeeper leaps for it, arms outstretched. Diego Maradona goes for it too and slaps the ball out of the keeper's hands and into the back of the net. For those unfamiliar with soccer, you aren't supposed to do that. You can't do that. Yet, the referee, to the English players' horror, swallows his whistle. their frantic protestations fall on deaf ears. As Maradona wheeled away, seeing that his infraction would not be called, seeing the rows and rows of screaming fans and his excited teammates streaking towards him, what do you think he felt in that moment? He had just broken all the rules and gotten away with it on the biggest possible stage where
what does this have to do with God?
Any higher. He had just irreversibly altered the course of history and cemented himself as an icon, a literal figure of worship. Do you think in that moment he felt as though he could actually shift heaven and earth? Do you think he felt like a god? This moment would live on infamously as the hand of God, the most controversial goal ever scored, the ascendancy of a man to a god. I've actually been thinking a lot about God recently and about control and power in general. Full disclosure, I am currently semi-hospitalized because of mental health stuff, which has most certainly slowed down my video output, but not quelled it entirely. Nothing can stop me from yammering on about media featuring classic religious iconography. So today, we are looking at 3 wildly different depictions of God, although they are all wild nonetheless. And none more so than the 1974 film Zardoz, starring Sean Connery. But before we get into all of that, I do need to give a quick spoiler warning for all the different media that I will be spoiling in this video. As always, I have time-stamped when I will be yapping about what, and there is a full index in the description of all featured media, which does include the music used, and on that note, there is a playlist available on the channel of all the music I've ever used in my videos, and if you have enjoyed any of those, or this one, feel more than free, feel encouraged to like, comment, subscribe, and or to support me on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can have your name shouted out at the end of every future video and gain access.
Alrighty, well, seems I might have to be doing some stuff real quick, but I would like to start on this now. Let's go repair my pickaxe first, because should I use the diamond pickaxe? It doesn't have efficiency, so it might actually be slower. Oh boy. I combine these two, but then it's subpar. I guess I'll just repair my current pickaxe. Alright. Alright. Okay. Alright, okay. Turn to the Mac. This mailbox is mine, and this triangular sign, the blue balloon, the month of June, mine, 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 mine. City streets are mine. They're all emphatically mine. It all belongs to me. Everything that I see, the southeast and west, I caress it, 'cause I possess it. Shit. The poop and farting. The Putin Vertin. So when you wonder why they kill me, I'm just mining water. I just fell in a hole. Now I'm crying. Every server I go on, yeah, it's inspiring. Minecraft. I'm just mining. Probably bring a bread with me, just in case, so I don't have to keep going down to sleep.
¿Puedes entrar? Carolina.
My balls itch. Put the video essay back on.
To a growing library of shorter videos plus whatever else I feel like putting on there. But
I want to learn about God. Tell me about God. Video essay is.
Warning.
Oh, I forgot I had Frostwalker on. The only piece of armor I have on.
For the audio-only crowd, I will be spoiling Zardoz, Squirrel Stapler, and the Little Green God of Agony.
Alright.
Also, I do apologize that the footage of Pancake that you're seeing right now is older, reused, but I couldn't take her with me to the mental health treatment facility, so we've been apart for a while, but my wife has been sending me updates, and Pancake, aside from acting out on walks, apparently, is doing just fine, as am I also.
Alright.
Or, well,
Good to know.
I was, until I made the mistake of watching Zardoz on a public television in a crowded room.
The gun is good. The gun is good. The penis is evil. The penis shoots seeds.
I just didn't have a good idea of what this movie was. I thought it was going to be a cheesy sci-fi action adventure, and it is very so much not that.
You have penetrated me.
Zardoz is one of the wildest movies you will ever see. It is batshit crazy, start to finish. And its depiction of God is no exception, but frankly, I sort of don't know how to describe what God is in this movie or where I should start. I can't just hit you with it because it wouldn't make any sense at all out of context with the rest of the film. But also, I fear if I do go ahead and synopsize the movie, it'll still sound like nonsensical gibberish. And that's because Zardoz is just like that. It's plotted like a Mad Lib. It's absolutely outrageous. So I am going to recap it real quick, mostly for my own amusement, and also so that y'all know I'm not just making stuff up about this movie. It does really need to be seen to be believed. Zardoz begins with an exposition dump delivered by the floating head of a character named Arthur Frayne. This opening actually had me kind of tripping because I had just watched House on Haunted Hill the literal day before, which opens the exact same way.
I'm Frederick Lauren, and I've rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that my wife can give a party. A haunted house party. She's so amusing.
Writer-director John Borman was forced to include this little monologue by the studio, who hoped it would help make the film easier to understand. And it achieves that goal in retrospect.
Whoa,
the way it's sort of
Emerald.
just awkwardly stapled to the beginning of the movie raises more questions than answers for a first-time viewer. A title card informs us that the year is 2293, and we are then introduced to Zardoz, who appears in the form of a giant, angry-looking, floating stone head. He preaches to his followers, a group of scantily clad men called exterminators, and then vomits up an arsenal of firearms for them to use in their ongoing massacre of the Brutals, who are normal, mortal farmers and whatnot who serve an immortal group of people called the Eternals, who all live in this place called the Vortex, which is like a big fancy estate. There's like a mansion and gardens and stuff like that. Inside of Zardoz's mouth, Sean Connery emerges from a pile of grain and spots Arthur Frayne, who he promptly shoots. Arthur then flies away for some reason, and Sean Connery escapes into the Vortex, where the Eternals use their special mind powers to capture him and interrogate him in this big room that is decorated with naked people, where his memories can be watched on this like big screen. At first, the Eternals' goal is to find out what happened to Arthur Frayne, but they lose interest in that endeavor pretty quick and instead decide to make Sean Connery their slave for a little while. Then one of them talks backwards, which makes everyone laugh for some reason. And then Sean Connery is introduced to a group of people called apathetics, who are basically zombies. But who cares about them? Because now it is time for the Eternals to solve one of life's greatest mysteries. The mystery of the boner. And no, you did not mishear me. The Eternals, who are all flaccid, which is the correct pronunciation of that word, by the way.
In fact, what I think I'm seeing is the human equivalent of a flaccid penis.
Flaccid. It's actually pronounced flaccid. Not a lot of people know that.
And also sexless, I guess. They don't know about the birds and the bees. That's all quite the enigma to them. So they throw on some aphrodisiacal videos for Sean Connery to watch, and then they all stare at his crotch for a little bit, and then they use their special mind powers to all meditate together. But this one guy crashes out over this and is cast out of their society. He is also, and this is probably the coolest part of the movie for me, he is also aged as a punishment. So the Eternals are all immortal, but they can still be aged. So now this dude is forced to be elderly forever, which is a pretty neat idea. You can make a whole story or whatnot centered on an immortal society where the penalty for breaking the law is being aged. But anyway, Sean
That was a really good
visits
pickaxe.
the outcasts and meets the guy who
I
invented
could have been paying more
the
attention.
tabernacle, which is a big diamond that is also some sort of artificial intelligence, which is what enables the Eternals to be immortal. Plus, it's the source of their psychological powers. Sean Connery realizes that his destiny is to destroy the tabernacle. He has been bred for this purpose, and all the events of his life have been calculated and manipulated by Arthur Frayne, who is Zardoz. Arthur Frayne is part of a group of Eternals who want to die, who are tired of this aimless, immortal existence. So he created Zardoz and all that jazz with the
Hold on, I need to go fucking shut the door.
Destroy the tabernacle. He also sort of taught Sean Connery how to read, which is where the second coolest part of this movie comes in. Sean Connery reads The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the novel by Frank Baum. Zardoz, Oz.
What did I miss?
Reading the book enables him to realize that Zardoz is a fake god and should be destroyed. And yeah, I really like this reveal. I think it's actually pretty thematically interesting. So after realizing Zardoz is all bogus, Sean Connery hides in a pile of grain and shoots Arthur Frayne, and that's what was up with all of that. Most of the Eternals then embark on a manhunt for Sean Connery, who hides amongst the apathetics, who all find him so sexy that they all start to awaken from their malaise and attempt an orgy with him. But he runs away into the woods where the outcasts find him and utilize the power of drag to sneak him back into the mansion. His pals then use their mind powers to share all of their knowledge with him. So now he's not just the apparent hottest man alive, but super smart too. Charlotte Rampling is in this movie too, by the way. She's like the main eternal lady, and she tries to kill Sean Connery, but changes her mind at the last second and decides that she'd rather just bang him instead, I guess. And then Sean Connery enters into a telepathic battle with the Tabernacle, which he wins, allowing him to have power over the Tabernacle now, I think, and he can make time go backwards now and allow people to die, so all the Eternals are now mortal. All the other exterminators show up and start killing everyone while Sean Connery and Charlotte Rampling escape to a cave, and I guess they become lifelong cave dwellers afterwards, because the film ends with this crazy little montage of time passing. We see them have a kid, said kid grow up and leave, and then the pair of them grow old and die and turn into skeletons.
What
and,
the?
yeah,
what is this fog?
That's the end. That's
my game
Zardoz.
foggy?
It should come as no shock that John Borman was higher than a kite during the film's production, which was pretty chaotic all around. An extra dressed as a baboon was attacked by a real baboon. They went so hard on the smoke machines that it ruined a bunch of the film prints. They shot the movie in Ireland in the 70s, so the IRA was like a major worry, as were STDs on the set, which was described as a pretty hedonistic environment. They had to reshoot that ending montage like 3 times, which angered Sean Connery so much that he had to be restrained by several production assistants. It was also very difficult to get him to cross-dress for that one scene, and unfortunately, none of this contributed to the betterment of the project, because the movie was a massive flop. Film critic
I wonder why.
wrote that if this is intellectual thinking, then Donald Duck deserves the Nobel Prize. I will say that if this was released today with the A24 logo slapped on top of it, I think people would go crazy for this thing. But in general, I do really appreciate how wild and wacky the movie is. And you know, I'm always up for a good depiction of a false god. That's one of the reasons why I enjoyed the Blasphemous games so much. Zardoz's appearance was inspired by Belgian surrealist painter René Magritte's The Castle of the Pyrenees, which depicts a giant floating stone castle. Zardoz does also just look very cool. A big scary stone angry flying face in the sky is a very striking image. The effects work behind it is also really solid, and the thematic connection to the Wizard of Oz, Zardoz being just like a giant mask, like how Oz first appears to Dorothy, is clever. Probably isn't the right word for it, but it is most certainly intriguing. In a film that is mostly filled with nonsensical pseudo-intellectual gibberish, Zardoz's connection to the wonderful Wizard of Oz is something to latch onto. It is a compelling plot point and helps to make this a pretty cool depiction of a god, even if it is revealed to be a fake one.
That was pretty interesting.
Hey, it's me from Beyond the Edit, and back home, Pancake and I are reunited.
Nice.
At last. I was honestly kind of worried that she might not like recognize or remember me, but she did. She was very excited to see me, and I was very, very happy about that. She's got the memory of a goldfish. Actually, no, that's bad, right? No, what's the good one's elephant? Elephants have good memories, right?
How do I make a netherite pickaxe? What?
I think.
I'm gonna try and make. How to make a netherite weapon. Oh, that's the old. To craft another weapon, you need to upgrade diamond weapons using netherite ingots at a smithing table. Is that not what this is? What the hell's a smithing template? What is happening? What's the fappening for him? Armor, what the fuck? That's unfortunate. I guess I'm just gonna use fucking these pickaxes for a while because I don't want to break my diamond pickaxe. Fine, it's fine. Alright, let's put the thing back on.
So, before we begin this next segment, I do need to give a short, minor content warning. So, this video was cobbled together over the last couple of months under some very different and difficult circumstances. So, for one thing, I do apologize for the varying levels in audio quality. But also, I made each of these while I was in very different headspaces. So this next segment was made at a very low point in my treatment and recovery. I was feeling a lot of anger and despair, and I was meeting a lot of new people who had been very adversely affected by the actions of and decisions made by some of our lawmakers and oligarchs. So FYI, this is a little bit more intense.
What the hell's an oligarch?
Than, my usual
Using big words on me. Oligarch. A ruler in an oligarchy. Wow, that's great. Oligarchy. A small group of people having control of a country, organization, or institution. I guess what would you consider small would be the question. Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, what's considered small? Too many questions. Let's just move past it.
Included as well, and if that's not your jam, that is perfectly fine. Feel free to skip past this part or just dip entirely. But be wary. If you do that, you might make pancakes sad.
The oligarchy. Such a unique word. What the was that? I'm not gonna question it. I'm not gonna question it. Anyways, I guess I haven't even explained what I'm doing, am I? I'm mining a hole. It will be a very deep hole. A hole to the bottom of the world. And then I will build a tower in said hole. And that tower will stretch to the top of the world.
Squirrel Stapler is a silly little game where you shoot squirrels, staple them to your dead wife's corpse, and meet God. Developed in just 10 days by David Zemansky as part of the Dread X Collection 2, Squirrel Stapler is one part parody of PS2 era hunting games, if not maybe just low effort shovelware type stuff in general, one part slow burn psychological horror, and one part overwhelming existential fever dream. The gameplay loop is simple. Each day in the game, you leave your cabin, hunt 5 squirrels, collect their carcasses, return to your cabin, and staple them to what's left of your special lady friend. You've got a map, a score tally, a noise meter, a visibility meter, and a gun. Later in the game, you also have to contend with these big squirrel bears that blow up when they get too close to you. Squirrel ghosts can also chase you around and deal damage. There are ammunition refills, speed and health bonuses that you collect along the way, plus these little documents that provide you with squirrel facts, tips, and snippets of esoteric storytelling.
Sorry, let's go craft another one.
In the form of field reports, prose, and Bible verses. Not real Bible verses, though, to be clear. The first one you find reads, Book of the Grove, chapter 6, verse 1. Saith the goat of the wood, thou shalt not staple squirrels. You are also informed via bloody writing on the wall of your cabin that, in 5 days, God is coming. Similar red text at the beginning of the game provides a little bit of context for the player's character and said character's motivations. We came here to get away from it all so that our love might blossom. But our love has not blossomed. Look at my beloved. The flies have made her ugly and rotten. I wish she were beautiful like the squirrels of the wood. And so I will cover her in the squirrels of the wood. On day 2, you are somehow left a note by your wife, which reads, I don't want squirrels, I want skin. Give me back my skin, or give me yours instead. On day 3, she somehow migrates to a different room in the cabin, and on day 4, she even appears before you out in the woods. At the end of each of these days, when you sleep, you are greeted by this very lovely, very low-res image of a squirrel, as you are also when you visit the Sin Shack. Committing non-specific sins in the shack actually boosts your score. On day 5, red text informs you that God is coming today, as was foretold earlier.
He's
Once
what?
you finish hunting
What is
squirrels,
God doing?
a countdown to God's appearance begins. You are locked out of your cabin and serenaded with the overpowering caroling of what I can only assume to be the collective chorus of every squirrel you have sent to squirrel heaven. This
You
finale
win.
is panic attack inducing. It is a thunderous crescendo and startling climax to what has mostly been a tranquil experience up to this point. Yes, the game has been strange and eerie at points, but it hasn't been hostile up until this finale.
God is what? God is
Stapler's
what?
climax is an
What?
all-out assault on the senses.
What is
It
God
a
doing?
righteous vengeance carried out by an angry God, where the player's character is resoundingly punished for his sins. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The idea of hell or some kind of divine judgment is, to me, a nice thought, especially when it seems that here in the quote-unquote real world, that all you need to escape
Quote-unquote
punishment
real
for even the
world.
most heinous
It's a
crimes
pretty funny
imaginable
statement.
is just a little bit of power or money.
No one man should have all that power.
Squirrel Stapler's god, who is perhaps
Kanye
god of the
West.
squirrels or some kind of higher power related to nature maybe, is also actually neither of those things. The game simply defines it as God. This is God. Behold, for your lord is a giant, floating, disembodied, crazy-looking demon squirrel head thing. Although this god could also be technically the goat of the wood mentioned earlier in the Book of the Grove, what God's design here literally is 2 low-res squirrel images stapled together, plus what I think is a cat mouth dropped on top. Interestingly, God also spawns into the game the moment you exit the cabin for the first time, and is tucked away underneath the map right below the cabin. Once that timer begins on day 5, God teleports from his hiding place to the player and sticks onto your back like a leech. Only once the timer ends does it uncouple itself, ready to scare the absolute shit out of you. I have no problem admitting that when I first played the game, probably about a year or so ago, I jumped like 2 full feet into the air. It is a perfectly executed jump scare, and while yes, it is very surprising, it is no surprise that it is so well done. David Szymanski is most famous for developing the game Iron Lung, which features a similar moment, also rendered with expert timing. All of Szymanski's games, for that matter, are wonderfully atmospheric and pull off some really engaging world building with a minimalist flair. He is able to do so much with so very little. It's really cool, and all the excerpts from the Book of the Grove are very well written. I also mentioned earlier that you can find these squirrel facts, which, and like, I'm no expert. I'm not a squirrelologist by any means, but I can't help but wonder if they aren't altogether true. The prose I referenced earlier comes in the form of a short story entitled The Lady, which tells the tale of a lonely artist who purchases a fine paintbrush whose bristles are made from the hair of a beautiful woman. The artist paints a portrait of what he believes she might look like, but once he learns that the paintbrush's bristles were actually made from the hair of a wild boar, he becomes inconsolable. Shortly after, he meets an old woman who offers to cast a spell which would bring
What the frick?
the
Why
woman
is
he
this guy here?
painted to life. He gladly accepts this proposal, but quickly regrets his decision when he realizes that he only painted the woman from the waist up. She comes to life, but quickly dies horrifically due to being
Oh,
halved.
that's unfortunate.
This was a particularly bad case of somebody being cut in half. I was not able to reattach the top half of his body to the bottom half of his body.
Speak English, Doc. We ain't scientists.
The artist actually kills her with an axe as an act of mercy, but anyways, he and the old woman then make stew out of the remains. But the stew turns out to be poisonous, so they both die.
Wow.
Eventually destroy the artist. The end. While I do like how playful and funnily sudden the ending to The Lady is, I also think it does sort of cheapen the piece as a whole, and I don't really understand how it fits in with the rest of the game. It may not be intended to at all, or perhaps the player's character is the artist and the woman he painted is supposed to represent his dead wife, who he may or may not have also killed. I've seen a lot of people theorize about how all these different strands connect together, and while I do believe that this game is laced with meaning, I don't think that there is a unifying theme or narrative. I don't think the lady, the field reports, the squirrel facts, and whatnot are all pieces of a puzzle for us to just put together. To me, the game seems to be purposely incongruous, but not thoughtless, just abstract as the cosmic squirrel god who arrives to punish you for your sins, who arrives to punish you for all of our sins.
You win.
Surely Stephen King is the most influential, if not most popular horror writer of all time. I mean, you could maybe make an argument for Poe, maybe Lovecraft, or Stoker, Barker, or Mary Shelley maybe, or R.L. Stein.
I start off each day with a nice bowl of Cheerios because they're just as cheery as me. Cheerios look like little mouths, so sometimes for extra fun, I'll add googly eyes to complete the face.
But I don't think anyone really comes all that close to matching just how large King's bibliography is.
Bibliography? Is that the word used for someone's books that they've written?
Steve King wishes he could write like me, and I've sold way more books than him, but nobody ever talks about that! Way more books!
And how many of those works are iconic? But forget Pet Sematary, Salem's Lot, The Shining, The Stand, The Mist, Misery, Thinner, Christine, Carrie, Cujo, It. Largely forgotten and tucked away inside of Stephen Jones's 2011 short story collection, A Book of Horrors, lies one of my all-time favorite Stephen King stories, a short tale entitled The Little Green God of
Agony, all the torture they teach.
Here's a misconception I had. I thought that King's 1987 novel Misery was written as a response to or was inspired by a real-life car accident.
Está haciendo. Está haciendo. Ah, okay.
That he had suffered and that had left him badly injured. But in fact, that real-life car accident in which a distracted driver swerved off the road and hit him, collapsing one of his lungs, breaking his hip, and shattering his right leg would not transpire until 1999. The Little Green God of Agony is actually that story born from the survival of a harrowing near-death incident. In a 2015 reprint of the short story, along with 20 or so others collected in a compilation entitled The Bazaar of Bad Dreams, King would write that during those long months spent recovering some range of movement in my right leg and then learning to walk again, I had plenty of time to reflect on what some philosophers have called the problem of pain. This story is about that, and I wrote it years later when the worst of my own pain had receded to a steady, low mutter. Like several other stories in this book, the Little Green God of Agony is a search for closure. Taking place entirely in the bedroom of the 6th richest man in the world, an appropriately curmudgeonous and rude man named Andy Newsom, the Little Green God of Agony is a focused and uncomplicated tale of pain and suffering. 2 years prior, Newsom survived a plane crash, and the injuries he sustained from that event have left him bedridden with severe, unbearable chronic pain. His
wow,
nurse,
that's a great
Pat
enchantment.
McDonald, who privately believes that he is too much of a wuss to overcome his condition, keeps her mouth shut because she is being paid a lot of money. A priest named Rideout shows up and tells Newsom that his pain is being caused by a demon god which has been living inside of him and feeding off of his suffering. He offers to expel this malignant evil in exchange for 750 grand, which he would use to rebuild his church. Newsom agrees to this, which irritates Kat so much that she berates him for like 2 full pages. In summary, she calls him a lazy coward and a stupid fool, which gets her fired. But Rideout insists that she not be and remain to witness the exorcism, so that she can learn a little compassion. Rideout then performs the expulsion, and lo and behold, the Little Green God of Agony forces its way out of Newsom via his mouth. And it's described as like, I was picturing like one of those rubbery ball, hairball toys. I don't know what those are called, but I will look it up later and then record myself saying the actual name of that toy and then run that through Audacity before inserting that snippet right here. It's called a Kush ball. I don't know why I couldn't have just Googled that when I recorded this in the first place. I don't know why I did that, but what then transpires is a scene of total chaos. There is a storm outside, which has grown so unruly that it sends a tree cascading through the window and into the room. The power goes out. Rideout suffers a fatal heart attack. There are a handful of other characters present, by the way, who don't really matter. There's a housekeeper. There's this one guy who accidentally pepper sprays himself at this juncture, and then the Little Green God of Agony crawls onto the housekeeper's face, which causes her severe searing pain, which only ends once Kat swats it with a broom and stomps on it like a bug. Newsom, who's kind of off in his own little world, announces that he is feeling much better. Kat feels something, presumably the Little Green God of Agony, crawl onto the back of her hand, and that's it. That is the end. I am well aware that our lovable little green demon god isn't the god, our Father who art in heaven, but is a minor god, keyword god. So I think it fits with the theme of this video, even if loosely. But also Zardoz isn't capital G god either. So when Rideout is making his pitch to Newsom, he tells him that there are many gods. The fact that our Lord, the Lord God of hosts, rules them all, and on the day of judgment will destroy them all, does not change that. These little gods have been worshipped by people both ancient and modern.
Bruh.
They have their powers.
Where they keep showing up.
Sometimes allow those powers to be exercised. I love the idea of lesser gods. I love the idea of there being some kind of god of agony, of pain, which is such a controlling thing to experience and feel. We can pretty much all agree that pain sucks.
That was weird.
A sizable chunk of our lives is motivated by the want to avoid suffering, to evade anything that could cause harm. In that way, the overwhelming fear of agony and the experience of suffering itself governs a lot of our actions, and it does kind of have power over us, like some sort of god. I am a little bit more familiar with what I would describe as thinky pain, to quote Mark Maron, or the suffering that comes from mental illness than I am suffering that comes from like falling off a horse and breaking your arm in 3 different places or something like that. Although I was in a nasty little car accident last year which fractured my finger, and that really hurt bad. I would do some very not flattering things to avoid having to experience that pain again. And in that way, the Little Green God of Agony does have some power over me, as it does all of y'all, which makes absolutely no sense to say. Saying all of y'all completely defeats the point of contracting the phrase you all into y'all. I've only made it longer by saying that and a more laborious expression. And
yeah,
in
but
that way,
it comes
I am
across
my own
better, man.
little god of agony. I, like many of y'all, probably don't make things easy for myself. It's hard to be a functioning adult when you're plagued by self-destructive compulsions and obsessions, but also, I think that I'm gonna figure it out and squash that little god of agony. I didn't feel that way yesterday at all, but I do
I need a new chest.
and I hope
Gosh,
that
diddly darn,
if it does,
diddly darn
you're
it.
probably watching this video on YouTube right now. And if it doesn't, then you're not. You don't even exist because I never finished this video and uploaded it. So if you are watching, and if today marked the day that I began to overcome that little god of agony, then that means that day will surely come for you too. Who knows? It could even be today.
Alright, that was an interesting video. I learned about the god, and I learned what an oligarchy is. Anyway, here's the next one I wanted to watch. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Oh god, my booty cheeks hurt.
As time ticks on, the internet becomes an ever-growing graveyard.
It goes on and on and on and on and on,
not just for the people dying, but for the places they inhabit. If a town were to one day lose its population, the town itself would suddenly be left with an expiration date. Be it slow weathering from rain and wind or the sudden destruction of tornadoes and earthquakes, the life force of these places existed through the people willing to maintain them. The internet is in many ways a place just like the ones in our world, but one whose destination is both
this project is gonna take forever.
It has addresses and somewhat of a centralized network.
But it's fine. I need something to do, honestly.
The experience of the internet is in large part defined
Thought there was another dude back there.
Interaction. Since nobody lives in these places, they're designed to be inherently transient. Like an airport or a store, it exists for people to move through and be in temporarily. In this way, the internet is given life through interaction and attention itself. Unlike most places in real life, an internet location is nearly impossible to stumble upon. You at the minimum need to type in a random address, and most websites don't have the type of name that you can search expecting to find something there. Websites, as long as the servers exist, will exist themselves, but if abandoned by everyone, will almost always stay that way. They are defined by the life that finds it, invisible until observed and disappearing again afterwards, only existing in attention or in memory. If there were ever a place, a medium, an organ that represents the collective consciousness of humanity, it is the internet. It's a place that lives and dies by how many people pay attention to it, and the landscape of it is shaped by the wills of people. The only difference, of course, is that websites can continue to exist, well beyond when they've been all but abandoned. These places, these websites can become permanent ghost towns, unchanged and unweathered, never decaying and never disappearing. However, while most places online are interconnected, part of the World Wide Web, down this line of thought comes a realization. The World Wide Web isn't the only internet. There are smaller, isolated places, ones that capture smaller chunks of reality and that deal with the constant threat of coming to a very sudden end.
Chapter 1.
One of the most widespread and yet not strongly thought about examples of isolated collectives are video game consoles. It's easy to understate just how unique this is in the world. In a way, it's one of the only places that highly and almost exclusively concentrates children to young adults online together, barred by common interests and an often hefty price point for both games and the online service itself. In that sense, consoles themselves, but even further online console video games, are some of the most isolated pockets of the internet around.
Modern Warfare.
PC gaming and console gaming are different in many ways, but consoles isolation actually informs a lot about how a game is designed. Quite simply, for a game to exist on a console, everything relevant to a game must exist completely inside of it. Ever since the dawn of PC-centric game design, they've been given the ability to be designed openly. Games don't merely exist as a thing you can play. These worlds need guides, information, friend systems, matchmaking, lore guides, everything supplemental that orbits the things that exist beyond the world immediately around you. Even back in the 2000s, developers enjoyed the advantages that being connected to the World Wide Web granted them. Trackmania, a series launched in 2003, has from the start existed at the mercy of its fan base. Trackmania is and always has been a racing series, but far more importantly, it's always been a track builder. Games with level creators have always been in an awkward position. In a way, it is quite literally an art form, a highly specific medium through which to express yourself, but that freedom is in direct contention with the highly simplified system it's forced to function within. This doesn't just go for the literal game mechanics, however. A game's aesthetics are incredibly important to not just how the game looks, but how it feels.
Mario.
For games centered around level creation, though, the more stylized the game is, the more layered within someone else's artistic vision the player is. Trackmania Nations Forever is a stylistically barren video game. While the rough textures of the time have become an aesthetic in the way that any era of technology
the TikTok game?
The game design philosophy of Nadeo,
That's the TikTok game,
is to be as hands-off as possible. While much of the game, most especially the driving, exists entirely within the program of Trackmania Nations Forever, the creation is just as much outside of the game as in it. With each Trackmania game on PC is its own forum website, Trackmania Exchange. The game itself lacks any significant means of finding maps in its vanilla form. The lifeblood, the culture, the community experience of the game exists entirely through the exchange of art, the maps themselves. Through the website, you can see entire art movements, entitling and technique, known creators, passion projects, the maps inscribed so strongly into the canon of this art form that they stand tall culturally next to the maps hard-coded into the game's campaign. This tradition is continued on to this day, with more games bringing more tools and spreading on to more websites, with places like Discord and Twitch being the cultural lifeblood of the entire Trackmania scene. So much of Trackmania is not in Trackmania, and that lack of barrier is the very thing that makes the game as we know it possible. Maps can be saved and transferred via GBX files stored on your computer, replays and ghosts can be analyzed in an editor, runs can be exported directly using a video encoder and uploaded to social media sites, plugins can be made and shared in order to patch up the mechanics the developers don't have the time or awareness to add to the game. The base is made by the developers, but the experience is shaped by us. This general effect is true for almost all games on PC. Even for games without level editors, community is now an
I realized why something felt wrong. I'm playing this at normal speed. I should be playing it at 2 times speed, as I usually do.
That happens almost always outside the video game itself. Despite there still being matchmaking and friend systems, social interactions within games are often only as long as the gameplay segments are. Communities in places like Discord instead exist almost as small towns, isolated from the rest of the internet, but in such a way that still collects a large group of people. Even more importantly, these communities often come to enact their will on the games themselves. If not by directly contacting the developers, a game's modding scene can occasionally come to overshadow the primary intended experience as a whole. Even more importantly, modding provides a consistent flow of content to a game that may or may not otherwise die without it. The single best-selling video game to this day, and by far, Minecraft is, quite frankly, hardly a video game in the most traditional design sense. Yes, there is a game progression, but its pure survival mode is not and almost never has been the thing the game is known for. The world of Minecraft is there far more these days as an excuse to hold many disparate elements and micromechanics, ones that interlock in a way that both lets them coexist and even further lets them exploit each other for any specific task the player wants them to. The base game is then even further combined with the 2 most important things of Minecraft's endless lifespan: plugins and mods. The elements of Minecraft are a potato, rich with enough conceptual nutrients so that the ingredients whatever modders want to put on top can be smoothly integrated. What happens is that
I'm playing non-modded Minecraft right now.
Are not there in the base game itself and only are there due to the force of the Minecraft community's will. In this sense, rather than just building track, the community's passion for Minecraft has literally reformed the landscape of the world itself. Be it Skyblock servers, minigame servers, drug run, PvP, Hunger Games, any game that wishes to be made, even within the simplified developmental box the game presents, is given access to tens of millions of players. Through its internet, Minecraft itself has turned from an individualized game into its own micro-internet, a digital world that, like Minecraft itself, represents the mass consciousness of the player base. While humans build towns, in this world, humans build universes, ones that shape the exact desires of both them and anyone else searching for that same interest. Even the art form of track building has evolved with time. Nowadays, players can directly import assets from Blender into the game. What started as a game with block sets stuck on a grid now has a website with tens of thousands of user-made blocks free to use by anyone, entire maps modeled from scratch for the purpose of being enjoyed by the most dedicated players. However, for those not skilled in 3D modeling, tracks in the newest edition of the series, Trackmania 2020, are just like the ones in the past, clean, simple, and most importantly, kind of boring looking. In the course of the entire Trackmania series history, though, there was exactly one game that was not made for PCs, and, quite frankly, the difference is striking. Trackmania Turbo is a game like no other. Despite coming out in 2017, the game is cast with
TikTok game.
From the announcer that chastises you constantly to the bright signs to the urgent UI to the breakneck speeds, Trackmania Turbo is a game that exists in a hyper-real smattering of a time long past. Unlike every other Trackmania game, it's known above all for its solo campaign. The campaign is a 200-track marathon spanning 4 different cars and biomes with entirely different controls and mechanics, with every single track having 4 medals: bronze, silver, gold, and Trackmaster. Despite the game selling millions of copies, the estimates of people who have gotten every single Trackmaster medal, the highest on each track, is estimated to be around 1,000 people ever. Only after getting all 200 Trackmaster medals, a journey that takes most over 200 hours, do you unlock the Super Solo campaign. This campaign is the same 200 tracks with a new medal set, one set by actual professional Trackmania players: Super Bronze, Super Silver, Silver, Super Gold, and Super Trackmaster. Only 50 people in the 8 years since the game was released has managed to get all 200. 100 medals of which were outright cheated. 93 by one of the best players in the world playing in slow motion. Trackmania Turbo's legacy lies in a struggle unrelated to the other people you're competing against, but rather the wall of insanity standing in front of you. Even in the Trackmania games with iconic official campaigns, its legacy within them is not in the medals, but rather in the world record competition. Not only is it because author times themselves are ultimately not incredibly difficult most times, but also because all the top players have had the ability to communicate easily, seeing as they all have the hardware able to both play the game and join online communities. They share replay files, export videos, record themselves using free software.
See the train coming. It's rolling round the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when.
And develop a website that's able to show who is on the leaderboard most of the time. This is a game that, despite its positives, was more or less destined to die. Without that outside contact, without knowing your rivals, without the hand of the community to optimize the game experience, it simply had no chance to stand next to the games before or after it. Trackmania Turbo is a multiplayer game that was designed as closed, and as such, its multiplayer was designed not to last. However, for the longest time in gaming, that was quite simply the expected outcome. Even for PC gaming nowadays, everyone understands that no game, even forever games, can last forever. Once the cost to maintain it outweighs the profits, once future updates are no longer projected to keep income flowing, that game's death is eventually ensured. And yet, importantly, the split between open and closed internets leads to two different kinds of deaths. While one is an apocalypse, the other is a slow, perpetual fade into nothingness. Single-player games, like multiplayer PC games, deal with the endless crawl of cultural abandonment, and this nature of our world has slowly become something of a fascination. Preservation has become not just more possible in the digital age, but easier to do by outright accident. Lost media is a topic more popular than ever, despite and due to our world preserving more information than ever. The internet is not just an organ of consciousness, but a reservation for any and all media that can possibly fit on it. While civilization in the physical world is an organ of life there, the structures and things we have, the systems that bear the weight of everything are not preserved so much as replaced. While every YouTuber likes to use the hypothetical the ship of Theseus, it's not a hypothetical. Every part of a ship gets replaced with enough usage, from tiny canoes to quadrillion-dollar warships. Every building and object, be it disaster or slow wearing of time, is subject to decay. The only thing that remains is the idea of what was there before, an object that looks similar or the same that we treat as the original. True preservation efforts in the physical world are relegated almost only to historical objects. They are decommissioned from their original purpose for the sole reason of existing, a physical object tied to a time or memory that has long, long passed. Even then, for many of the most prestigious historical objects, they get regular maintenance. Paint can detach from the canvas, get dirty, lose its luster, and people are paid handsomely to make sure it keeps the veneer of its original form, or at least refurbishing parts that make it aesthetically unappealing. Lost media is a more modern form of history, people searching for evidence of a thing that certainly or likely was there, but often with no solid evidence for. However, the search for what was lost is almost always directed at something not made to be saved, something that in the past would never be preserved. Cultural trash. The term is not being used in a negative way here. People have always loved cultural trash, but in a different way from the things society has put on a pedestal. They are things that, quite simply, were not considered worth the effort of maintaining. Nowadays, though, in a time where almost everything is saved somewhere forever, our natural curiosity eventually pulls towards what isn't saved, no matter its actual quality or, whether it's actually real. Most lost media exists right in the time of our slow transition into the modern internet age. The 80s to the aughts are a time where many people online grew up or saw media from, but also a time where the internet was at best relatively small and people saving large things was either impossible or something only a few people were actually trying to do. The fascination with these aesthetics is not just due to their usual interest in retro media and looks, but further because it's the closest time where we can't have everything we remember existing. Some 10-second snippet of an okay song can become the stuff of legends, a thing that people obsess over to the point that said obsession turns into something akin to love. And yet, most often, lost media is not found by some passionate person being connected, but rather through bulk searches, recordings of an entire day of television or radio that some random person in Omaha would do every single day. In the case of video games, though, there's something even more to it. Video files and their functionality has more or less remained the same for about as long as the internet, making some random file on some random hard drive the key to the entire preservation experience. Video games, in contrast, don't just have preservation of the general media, but also of our own personal experiences. If you played Minecraft, you likely remember your first world, at least to some extent. Your first home, the first village you found, your first diamond, the first time you killed the Ender Dragon. Unlike the things we cherish from the past in real life, these places are only ever changed by us when we are present. They are memory palaces, locations that directly link to our past, something pure and untouched. It's a moving, living memory, something more tangible than a picture, despite it being a world that isn't ours. Unlike other media, you can own Minecraft, but that world, that digital physical place, might be gone forever. Either it was deleted, or the computer you played it on was thrown out, or it was corrupted in a way that couldn't be recovered. That world is only ever saved by you. Abandonware websites, while incredibly important, are also deeply impersonal. They are thousands-long lists of video games considered not worth keeping, even for the companies that made them. I hardly ever feel the urge to play some shitty Flash game I put on during computer class I found on Newgrounds before they figured out how to block websites. Almost all of those games exist in databases, always at your fingertips. It's only when you search for that game or that save file and it's not there that remembrance turns into nostalgic obsession. In the act of preservation, however, there is something that, no matter how hard we try, can never be saved in its original state. Multiplayer games serve an even more special role on the internet, one that no other medium can. While websites live and die on their level of attention, in almost every case, the record of those places, and as such the experience of them, is able to be saved. The Internet Archive's Wayback Machine has, as of now, saved nearly 1 trillion web pages over the course of its history, the vast majority of them done by bots. In contrast, multiplayer games are, by their own existence, not just known about enough to be played simultaneously, but is the object of people's attention for long stretches of time. At the same time, though, these places are inherently transient. People obviously cannot live inside of a game, and all it would take is one monstrous solar flare, power outage, or a mom with a sledgehammer to cut our connection to these universes. Despite many multiplayer games containing homes, their nature makes every part of these worlds a temporary place. Abandoned multiplayer games have become more or less an obsession for the YouTube gaming community, with even me making a video about Tab Z, this abandoned April Fool's game that takes place in a zombie apocalypse. These videos, more than anything, focus on exploration, seeing places and mechanics that used to be the core of these universes, the places that everyone went, the veins through which life sustained and now entirely empty. There is an inherent novelty to that. If you were to ever see part of your school with its lights turned out, an airport closed down, a subway system entirely barren, it would create a dissonance in your mind. Post-apocalypses are not defined by homes being empty. Homes are empty constantly. They can remain empty for decades and centuries, while life continues on without them. When a town is dead, when a city is dead, when a world is devoid of life, it's the streets that are empty. These games, more than just abandoned places, are the closest we will ever likely get to seeing a real post-apocalypse. A world that lived by attention and was forgotten, discarded from the social consciousness, yet never decaying. A sign of life for a game is not maintenance, but rather growth. Outside of games propped up by a modding and private server scene, updates are the only way to change these worlds, and a lack of updates normally signals the slow loss of attention on a game. Video games are not just artificial worlds, but worlds whose essence is formed entirely out of a specific time and place in culture, like any other art medium. For other works, though, their existence as recordings or books maintains their whole existence within a bubble. Everything is contained within the bounds of these works, and so their life within culture is easily marked. They move behind us at the speed of time and exist as references to the past. These worlds, though, lack that grace. Their structure, their style, their every decision is trapped within a time, but the most fundamental part of the game, its player base, is forever trapped in the present. One of the most extreme examples of this is the website worlds.com. Though the dedicated servers have finally, after 26 years, come to a close for some stupid I named Web3 crypto thing, for the longest time you were able to play a multiplayer game from 1994 entirely unchanged at the drop of a hat. The game is surreal nowadays. Thousands of videos exist of simply walking through dead lobbies, through empty dance halls, mazes, long stretching hallways, entirely unspeaking. Despite the lack of commentary, or perhaps due to it, some of these videos end up with tens to hundreds of thousands of views. There is a pure fascination in this drearily empty space, places created by people at some point, but divorced entirely from the existence of the artist. The game, with the passage of time, is consumed entirely by a new, alienating feeling of isolation. Seeing the game as it is in these videos can almost give you the feeling that this game was basically always abandoned, its aesthetics being unfathomable to the idea of popular gaming, but it was quite literally a cutting-edge innovation in its time. Worlds.com was, in no uncertain terms, a phenomenon, a social meeting place in real time across the entire planet, talking to people you've never met and would never have been able to. Bowie World was a promotion in the 90s where, supposedly, David Bowie sat in his world and hosted a live Q&A. It was built entirely for the promotion's time frame of only a few hours, and the rest of its existence has been sitting there, empty, devoid of purpose. The game looks and sounds as it does, not due to hardware limitations so much as internet connection. At the time, dial-up internet was the best the average consumer had, and as such, the game
my
had
pickaxe is almost dead.
A small world constructed entirely of cubes. The game feels creepy to us now not only because of its emptiness, but even more so due to the progression of technology. Our games now are whole worlds projected into our minds. Both culturally and functionally, we are able to be sucked into these places to be filled by music and bright colors and seemingly living creatures. The gap in expectations for what a video game world is, that emptiness between the songs, the relative lack of sound effects, the textures that barely hold these walls together into some sort of cohesion, it's made uncanny not automatically, but by how our expectations of the medium have changed. The barrier between our world and the digital to our perceptions is no longer a clear barrier. So, once we step into a place like this, we are engulfed into its every unintended consequence. Worlds.com has not only taken the world of digital ruins, but also of a retroactive horror experience. Retro horror as a genre exists for many of the reasons that Worlds.com is now creepy, but the intentional exploitation just makes logical and logistical sense. Out of any indie game genre, outside of the now lucrative mass horror with franchising opportunities, indie horror is a very poor genre. That's to say, games are almost always completely free or dirt cheap, short experiences that people aren't willing to put money into, and made most often by either a small team of people or just one person. Retro aesthetics
oh god, my back hurting me.
But also far easier to do. Retro horror was inevitable, in so much as horror games would always have been made with retro aesthetics, even if the combination didn't actively complement each other. However, luckily for us, they do. There is truly a feeling of cultural isolation you experience when delving back into a retro game. Even in a fully flourished experience, a game that still holds up today, there is that feeling hovering over your head that this is a world that has been cut off from active social consciousness. You are alone in your experience of this place. As stated earlier as well, there's a certain way that aesthetics of the past consume their nuances. It becomes harder and harder with time to see the details cased within and beside the sharp colors, the bright colors, the compressed sound fonts. All
I'm gonna make another pickaxe.
The technology that formed their overall look, and in the process, the specific humanity and individuality of these games can slowly drain away. While it's not the case for all games, it can make some take on this ethereal feeling. It's like this world has always existed, even if you know it hasn't. For retro horror made in the modern era, though, ones that mimic the past instead of actually being there, there's an inherent tension that adds even further to the dread playing them. Our minds cannot fully stop themselves from treating an authentically designed game as somewhat of the same as the ones in the era they're mimicking. But above all, there's an implicit understanding. These games don't need to stay that way. Shipwreck 64, in my opinion, is one of the shining examples of the retro horror genre. It is, by technicality, an ARG. Elements exist outside the game itself that help you solve it, but it is primarily a video game. The story is of a game that, rather than being unreleased, was out for 3 days before being pulled off of shelves. The game we're playing is not haunted, is not secretly corrupted, but is rather presented by an archival team. One that, in its most interesting decision the game makes, created a safe version of the game alongside it. Labeled the 2023 version, the more you play it, the more of a special quality it takes on. You are required to play the safe version before you ever touch the original. In the fiction of retro horror, creepypastas, urban legends, we have access to one side of the puzzle, the original, the safe version. These stories are corrupted reflections of our memories. Their impact depends entirely on the context of the original to make it unnerving. Some recreations are made, something that is meant to capture the essence of these stories, but the original works are almost always inherently beyond reality. They can be shown visually, but the experience of them, be it due to supernatural factors or just the circumstance of the original really being corrupted, cannot be recreated. In modern retro horror, we're given the exact opposite. We're told that, supposedly, this game, or at least the vision of this game, came from a normal part of a normal world, then corrupted either by a ghost or a rogue developer or some other force. Each side, while effective in its own right, is an incomplete piece of the total puzzle, some uncrossable barrier between what is physical and what is told. Both require the other to exist, but by their nature, they almost never can at the same time. Shipwreck 64 is one of the only games I've ever seen to do both. The game is much shorter than a real retro game would be, but we find out as we uncover the mystery that it was very intentional, the top layer existing only to drag you deeper below. Even with that revelation, so much care was put into every detail, every sound effect, every asset, but the excuse of the archival team properly filling in the minor gaps in logic. You become used to and, in some way, endeared to the world of Shipwrecked. It is properly relaxing and fun. Even the eerie areas are eerily old video game sets. You become used to it, to the dialogue, the music, the skybox, the aspect ratio. When you're given that base of expectations, it does things to you. It adds a context that didn't exist before, that this isn't just a place that was made to be dead. It was, at one point, a game with a target audience and an attempt at broad appeal. So then, with every detail changed, every song note out of tune, you know in the back of your mind that something is very, very wrong. A game not corrupted, but intentionally warped. A game that, before it ever hit shelves, was waiting for the moment to wreck itself and drag you down into its depths. Only through our memory and the placement of retro games is this even possible to make as it was, borrowing from the expectations of not just the originals, but our corruptions of them. Because, sometimes, an intentional destruction can be much more painful than simple, empty world. On May 31st, 2013, an entire community vanished off the face of the planet. Flipnote Studio was a fairly simple 2D animation program available for free on the Nintendo DSi, releasing in the very final days of 2008 to Japan and soon after to the rest of the world, giving any young soul with a Christmas gift and an active imagination the ability to animate and share their creations with kids all across the planet. Unlike most social media, being freely available to the open internet, both Flipnote Studio and Flipnote Hatana, the name of the social function in the app, existed in a place isolated from the rest of the world. Stored away on this toy parents gave to their kids to idly entertain them was an entire world of creativity. With nothing but stylus and a dream, millions of animations, splashes of creativity traded along this special place, even being able to be exported as videos and posted to places like YouTube, some animations of which have tens of millions of views a day. It has remained as a niche style of animation, being the start for so many talented artists that its DNA continues on in small ways in the very fabric of not just animation, but online art as a whole. However, that influence now only exists in echoes. On May 31st, 2013, this world came to a sudden and inescapable end. There were many vocal protests once the closure was announced. Fans contacted Hatsuna and Nintendo in droves. Offshoot websites were attempted to be made to preserve the fanbase. Everyone collectively screamed and shouted to stop the closure. This entire appendage of online consciousness and creativity begging to live, but there was nobody on the other side that was truly listening. Time kept ticking forward, pushing endlessly towards a world where the haven of Footnote Hatsuna was nothing but a distant memory. In my last video, I spoke on the arbitrary nature of death in video games. In Journey, your character is entirely unable to die. Death is the most common risk and punishment in video games, but it doesn't, matter most of the time. Some games have things like hardcore modes, with genres like roguelites functioning on a similar principle, but death most times just resets you back to the checkpoint, a minor repeat in your inevitable path to the end of your predestined journey, wink wink. Other games have the same effect, ones like Manifold Garden also making death impossible, and in the case of both games, a death of some sort is the thing you're ultimately seeking. Both games serve as commentaries on video games as a genre, not through dialogue, but through a threadbare stripping down of everything that games wear to feel real. When every arbitrary aspect of what a game is taken away, all you're left with is a journey on a quest to the end of the world. Single-player games are designed eventually to end. Games don't just live by attention, but can only be created and perpetuated by it. Every game takes anywhere from thousands to potentially millions of man-hours to make, from solo developers to hundreds wide teams working for years to make a universe even worth our time and attention. Luckily for us, single-player games are given at least the benefit of some type of closure before our window into it disappears forever. Multiplayer games are not given that same grace. These are worlds that are designed not to live forever necessarily, but to live indefinitely. It exists more or less in the same way it always has, and even when updated, it's updated to another unchanging, endlessly existing world. Most multiplayer games are structured closer to sports than anything else, so these worlds, regardless of their theme, decoration, story, and detail, are arenas and not much else. And yet, despite their indefinite nature, among almost everything in the social organ of the internet, it is the least preservable. In the case specifically of consoles, however, of closed internets, it's much, much worse. While the multiplayer experience on PC dies a more or less natural death, being starved of attention until it's no longer supportable or simply becomes a ghost town, one of the single things that attention cannot stop is the decommissioning of a closed internet. Due to the manner of its existence, consoles more or less cannot be easily cracked and modded, cannot be widely preserved, and cannot be supported by custom servers. There are methods to do so, but they are often near impossible or near impossible to adopt on a mass scale, being technologically difficult for the average user. This makes for a grim reality for all console-exclusive games. They are a bomb with a ticking clock, the time unknown, whittling down day after day to an unstoppable apocalypse. If you've seen my most viewed video essay, you've heard of one of these cases. The Noble 14 was the final 14 players to exist on the original Xbox Live, persisting through the Halo 2 matchmaking system for nearly a month after what was supposed to be the final match. What I didn't mention in that video was the intention. Clearly, there was no real possible way to keep playing the game at this point. The function of multiplayer, the game of Halo 2, was no longer possible to sincerely engage in. What this was a protest. A protest against the gods that decided these worlds. The entire multi-universe of Xbox Live was no longer worth maintaining. This protest did not work. In fact, it's not even particularly unique. Every time, for every dedicated community, there is a desperate push from everyone still left behind, a cry across thousands of worlds, or even just one to keep building, promises of support, willingness to even pay a regular fee, and almost every time, those cries are ignored, and unceremoniously, the world comes to an end, like it never existed. There is an effect this has. These games, these nodes within the net of consciousness, were killed before they were allowed to die naturally. The uniqueness of this situation, this interaction of once being ignored and a place controlled entirely by it, leaves a permanent, irremovable scar where it used to be. Despite it being gone, its outline remains, and nothing is properly able to take its place. As time goes on, this location of memories becomes nothing more than a container of them, and with no real place to experience it all again, our collective memory begins to shift. The game is slowly mythologized. People can't move on from it. Some permanent part of themselves, in the back of their mind, is stuck in that world, in the moments just before it all came to an uncanny...
Oh, my back hurts. I need a larger chair. Like, I need to kneel down. I need to get like this in order to play.
Footnote animations or vines or just playing through an old beloved video game. However, this channel promises something truly special. It began on April 12, 2022, approaching the 10-year mark since the death of Footnote Hatsuna. Supposedly, in the brief time after the closure of the service, in that last celebration of life, a few hundred animations were submitted, only to be trapped in the limbo of the server's shutdown. These entries, through some means, were saved, but in a corrupted state. Incomplete, malformed, but a real look at the final moments of a cultural touchstone. However, as you peruse the entries, you see that these corrupted files are corrupted in a very specific way. Each video starts as an iconic animation shared and edited all across the service's history, until... Corruption in this case is not in data, but in content. A window previously closed off to us, the connection to the inner world of Footnote Hatsuna breaks away in the missing pieces, allowing us to look into a city dealing with a doomsday clock. This world is one dependent on servers, but more so dependent on attention that can only be expressed via creation. And so, with the shut-off of the servers, the life pouring into this world of characters, some mimetic entities formed and perpetuated by stars, the Hatsuna form of awards on a post, are cut off from their supply of life. What's shown is not only a ticking clock, but a bloodbath. All of the long-loved and long-known entities are either trying to stop the end of everything, or hunting each other down just to live a little while longer. All of this, though, while each animation is charming, impressive, and unnerving in its own way, is secondary to what's actually going on here. Footnote Hatsuna was a relative artistic phenomenon. This series was made for anyone to watch, but specifically for those who lived on the app, who actually participated, and it weaponizes that quite cleverly. In my opinion, whether or not the fiction of the story is actually true, that there is in story a real world coming to an end, the truth is immaterial. The videos, even in their horror, are inseparable from the silly, lighthearted community this was all born from. The simple art style and compressed audio never leaves. No 3D hyper-realistic creature jumps out of the screen, and in this horror screams a larger feeling, one of nostalgia. These videos are made in a very manipulative manner. Many possible routes can be taken in the course of a retro horror web series, but one where everyone's beloved character is systematically murdered is a very specific choice. We come to learn that there's a context to the YouTube channel, not just some mysterious vessel through which these videos start releasing. The being that runs the June Archive and Restoration Project is literally just a little guy. Fuzz, like the characters in this apocalypse scenario, is a mimetic entity. entity, but unlike them, it exists on a higher layer in our time in the social organ of the open internet, speaking directly to us. Fuzz is, seemingly, the formation of our collective nostalgia, existing in the shape most appropriate to evoke that nostalgia, that deep desire to go back to a time of visible pixels, of touchscreens and styluses and blissful isolation. Fuzz, like the other characters, live on attention, but in their case, they have direct access to our attention, not isolated via the DSI, but through YouTube views, comments, and likes. Their goal, like the thing that formed them, is simple: go back into the past and recover what was lost. A literal time machine. The overarching story of the June Archive is precisely this: between the windows into a dying world, we're tempted by Fuzz's offer to go back to where everything was simple. The series comes to a head when we're finally met with the ability to make a deal with Fuzz. We're put into the position of what seems to be a staff member for the June Archive that is within the world of it, attempting to break a code and restore this world back to where it was. Seeing as it's been dead since 2013, the only way to do so, to fulfill the preservation goal of this channel, a thing done for everything the internet has been able to, the only way to do it is to turn back time. After some work and making a deal with the devil, we as a community were presented with a choice. Escaping the room, we're met with a child, still playing on their DSI, preserved just like everyone else. We could either leave them to dream or wake them up. In the ARG, we as a community chose to wake them up, to reject nostalgia. Our character, presented with the chance to rekindle the flame with Flipnote to turn back time, kills the child inside them, and with it, Flipnote entirely. A good theme, the right choice, and understandable.
Breaking.
The funny thing is, though we understood the themes as a community, in real life, nobody has seemed to move on. There were official efforts to revive and continue Flipnote Hatana. Nintendo created Flipnote Studio 3D for the 3DS, but Nintendo and Hatana had a falling out, unceremoniously killing the service before it even began. By 2018, any official service regarding Flipnote Hatana was dead. Fan-made services would pop up, allowing archival browsing and sharing, but what was lost was lost. Pseudo-Memo is a service that was meant to be a revival of Hatana, hosted not on a console, but on the true blue open internet. This is the closest we've ever gotten to getting the actual thing back. Flipnote Studio and Hatana as a service, adapted to the modern internet, but looking at it, it is now a relative ghost town. The hottest notes are hardly getting any stars. Its Patreon has gone from an initial push to slowly coasting lower and lower, and seeing this, you might think that it's being given the death by abandonment that it deserved, but there is simply something off about all of it. Pseudo-Memo simply could never become what Flipnote was, even if it took off in popularity and came to surpass the original entirely. Looking at the notes, you see a culture in stagnation. People not creating things their free spirit tells them, things that are actively changing and shifting, its own mini internet with its own isolated culture, but rather an imitation of the culture remembered from over a decade ago. Some original notes are made, but almost everyone is still trapped in 2013, still trying to live in that moment where everything was innocent, where you had nothing but a stylus in your own mind to share with all the other kids across the world. This is a community bare open to the wide-scale sharing of the internet, filled with adults pretending they're returning to a sacred place. Even the June Archive and Restoration Project can't seem to die. Every few months to a year, despite a conclusion being reached, despite nostalgia being rejected, there are still more videos, still showing this endless apocalypse in action, a state of constant dying, being refreshed and put into new animation after new animation. In seeing both Pseudo-Memo and the June Archive, I feel the same dissonance as any other retro horror. These limitations being adopted out of emotion instead of it being the tools available at the time, stagnating ourselves to pretend to be somewhere and someone we aren't, the ghost of some vulnerability long shifted by the changing tides of life. However, in the place of abject horror, knowing that the modern can jump out at me at any moment, in Pseudo-Memo, I just feel this dread. Not that something might jump out at me, but that nothing is going to. These few things we can't save, can't preserve, can't let die naturally in our social consciousness become immortal. Persons might reject nostalgia, might reject memory, but people don't. So long as this endless hole exists, there will be people trying to fill it, unable to emotionally accept this simple reality. Flipnote Hatana is dead. It could be relaunched today, kept exactly the same as it was, or even adapted to the times. A good faith recreation, either on the DSi or the Switch 2, it simply wouldn't matter. It would be something else. All of these worlds taken from us too soon can never be the way they were, existing in the time with a different social organ, different in shape and culture and feel and technology, and all of them affecting each other and affecting how we remember them. Each and every abandoned game is a temple, one honoring the long-lived memories of time now past, the world left behind in the wake of the newer and the flashier. Their rust is made evident by the march of time, its unchanging turning visible polygons to visible wrinkles, a portal to a time long past. We're tempted to treat these places as undying, but despite their untouched state, they died a long time ago. Faced with these memory palaces, we can choose to play them as someone trapped in the past, or to play them as someone reflecting in the present. I choose to reflect. What's your choice? Good news, my Patreon actually has benefits now. Do you want to be part of a video essay club, like a book club but for video essays? In my new Discord open to anyone, link in the description, me and my patrons once a week select a video essay discussed at 12 p.m. CST every Sunday, a club I call Lakeside Chats. We also plan to be hosting game nights every Saturday and at other random times, open to anyone sometimes and open only to patrons if there's too many people looking to play. My patrons also get a channel to themselves where I offer video updates and details and just generally chat, as well as a Q&A channel where I provide detailed answers on anything you might ask.
Wow, that was a great video essay. Both of these video essays were really good. You should probably go. Should I? A second. I'll put these in the description after I'm done streaming. If I remember. Hopefully I remember, because these were two really good video essays. Fuck, my hand's itchy. Alright, video essay numero 3, because I'm still not done yet. Superman. Oh, don't swim. Isn't that Jack Stauber's thing? Alright, we'll watch it, I guess.
I think in many ways we take for granted the bliss of tedious errands, like grocery shopping.
Next Sauber.
And something that we can't really take out of our everyday life without throwing it in some form of disarray. So I certainly won't doubt the validity of its importance. Plus, any chance I get to stock up on junky store brand versions of the junky name brand stuff that's slowly digging my early grave always makes for a fun, interesting afternoon for me. That being said, though, I believe in that regard we see something like going to the grocery store as something basic and mindless. A simple filler moment between the ones where we will have to face some of life's actual problems, big or small, where we can replace the great questions of life, like, am I going to be
It's a little chunk of hope. Keep it going every day. Keep it going every day.
The simpler ones like what brand of bread looks good, or if I get this milk, am I actually going to drink it, or will I just let it go bad? However, what if I told you that these two mindsets can easily cross paths with one another? That simple things like milk and cheese can come with its own brand of existential crises. And these are bigger questions dominating our fragile little world, and whose answers have the ability to crush us like meaningless, empty-headed bugs that we are in this great and vast universe and cripple our brain comprehension. Now, before we start becoming all sweaty, like I am right now just mentioning any of that, let me take this question one step further. What if we actually had fun with those questions? Like actual fun, and came away from the experience with something positive and, dare I say, joyful. Allow me to introduce you to the strange and wonderful world of Jack Sauber and his short animated pop opera, Shop. Released as a 6-part micro-series on Adult Swim 2019, Shop follows a hapless man on his grocery run, whose encounters with a variety of unique characters all result in some form of philosophical question, which are only answered by small musical numbers that is some way tied to items on this man's shopping list. This thing is asked about your mental well-being, then not only Shop for you, but really so is the work of Jack Sauber, someone I guarantee you've heard in some capacity. Remember this song that dominated TikTok during the pandemic? Or maybe even this one.
Party, baddest little baby in the room. Feels something, just don't get me started. I get another gray hair for every face, yeah. Those aren't meant to them.
Sauber's work to be kind of hard to pin down. Letting his channel play on auto will certainly clue you into that, as his videos sway back and forth from fun, goofy music videos for his many sympathy comedies to wholesome skits.
God, I need a shit. God damn.
All until the pendulum swings hard into some of the most distressing things you've probably ever seen on the platform.
Behind curtain number 1 is correct. Wait, you don't remember what she looks like?
But then before you know it, you'll find yourself right back on the side of fun and goofy before you even have time to comprehend why that last video just ruined your entire day.
Oh my, what are you supposed to be, young man?
I'm a cowboy. Are you serious?
In short, if you get anything out of the video,
14. It's gonna be 14 either way, I guess.
Something darker and more adult swimming just beneath the surface.
I look what I can see.
And it's really not just a
Look at you. Look at me.
Always has so many particular things to say.
Dead weight. That's dead weight right there. I know that song.
Easily look at videos like this and think of them as all silent and weird for the sake of weird. But part of what I appreciate about Sauber is his ability to impact and tap into a variety of emotional states that either he might be in, or some that he might even be trying to express or understand in ways that.
Alright, let's go feed some sheep.
Lost childhood nostalgia, love, and depression swim through lyrics and songs.
God, it's been a long time since I've heard To Dead Weight. Back in like 2022. Wow, that's so long ago.
It takes so many minutes, if not hours, to get their ideas across the mountains. And somehow Sauber can effectively leave you with so much that you want in less than a minute. And certainly not every idea is new or unique to most, but it's the audacious and colorful way Sauber presents it to us that really makes an idea stick with you in ways not really thought of before. And that's not even getting to the uniqueness of his visual style, which is amazing in its own right. Every video being hodgepodge of different animation styles, sometimes slamming into each other in the same product. They all tend to be a mixture of simple Microsoft Paint drawings, hyper-stylized stop motion, and 3D renderings created in Blender, and sometimes all integrated with live-action visuals. A major part of the visual trademark also includes running the finished product through VHS to evoke some dreamlike sense of nostalgia, or, mainly, feeling watching a special and strange game that hasn't played in decades, but you found it at a thrift store or an antique store. It's eerie and a bit jarring when you're watching it, but somehow it takes a hold of you, and it all begins to make more sense the more you watch and think about it. And with all that in mind, I really think Shot is one of its crowning cheap. Not because I think it's so unique, Sonic apart, but because I really think it serves as a summation of what makes this stuff so good. The catchy tunes, the art styles crashing into one another, the themes of each section, and every one of those parts building and festering into something really special. And in this case, that being fear of choice.
It's not enough experience, gosh diddly darn.
Shot begins with our protagonist as standard fruit samples, cracking his brain over which of the two flavors he should try.
Don't overthink it, man. Just take one. Oh, yeah. No, thanks. I think I'll just come back for it.
And for the sake of this video, I'm just going to start calling him Jack, since he and every character in Shop are all voiced by Jack Sauber himself anyway. And if I don't, it's going to get really confusing trying to explain it. So, Jackson's decisiveness forces him to not choose either one of them, and instead sets out on his journey to the aisles of the grocery store. It's through these aisles that he ends up running into a scene-off woman, a snotty man, a moody grocery store employee, an anxiety-riddled man, and a caffeine-riddled woman. After each of these interactions that Jack has with these characters, he picks up an item from his shopping list, and some part of that item forces him to think of some existential anxiety spurred on by the people that he's met. This starts with an old woman bluntly demanding pecan cookies from the top shelf.
You want pecan cookies?
Pecan.
I'll grab you some pecan cookies.
These aren't pecan. I said pecan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you, deaf?
I'm not deaf. I said I'm not deaf.
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
After his still-to-talk with the scene-owl woman, Jack picks up a carton of milk that turns out to be expired, which causes him to drift into one of his numerous mini-musical existential crises, this one being about the fragility of life.
What kind of milk were you? What kind of life did you live through?
Jack somberly worries that the milk had a meaningful time living its life before its expiration. But that somberness eventually gives way to the realization that the world goes on after one's expiration, and all he can really do is be hopeful.
Life goes on and on and on and on and on.
Jack then picks up an unexpired carton of milk and moves on to the bread aisle.
Alright, next on the list is bread.
This is where he meets the wealthy man who looks down on Jack for thinking that he would eat something quote-unquote basic as artisanal multigrain bread. Something that's pretty unique to Jack. The wealthy man continues his mockery though, explaining that he specifically gets that bread for his dog, while he gets his bread from a more high-end establishment.
Alright, let's go fucking...
deaf.
This causes Jack to come from another crisis. Where he
Are you deaf?
If he lived in more arts and allowed finer material things in life to find him in ways he fears he's unable to.
I can live in an artisanal house with an artisanal wife and an artisanal car. Live in an artisanal life.
But through this moment, Jack has his own little Tyler Durden-esque moment.
Just not money in the bank. Car drive. Not counters for water. Like fuck cakes.
He comes to the conclusion that those artisanal items can easily disappear and can't make a person like him whole. It would only rob him of his identity and decides that the Wonder Bread lifestyle is just right for him. As he moves on to the next item on his list, paper towels, we pan over to a couple on another aisle.
Any luck, babe?
Sorry, Dave. Doesn't look like there's any vegan hot dog buns back here either.
The man accidentally bumps his head on a shelf and inadvertently causes something to fall off the shelf in Jack's aisle and shatters right in front of him.
Did you just break that?
Before Jack can answer though, the employee begins picking up the glass with his bare hands and cuts himself.
You're bleeding. Don't worry, it's just mine. Where are the pages glass shattered instantly? But it takes someone like you and me days, maybe weeks to put it back together to how it was.
The employee's words send Jack into another musical tizzy, where he begins to ask if messes are in some way controllable or irreversible. Is there a way that he could have prevented this mess which caused the employee to bleed? But the glass was going to break whether or not Jack was in the aisle or somewhere else. He couldn't have possibly known that another couple was going to cause that, and at the end of the day, life has no proper exit plan for its uncontrolled messes, and that we have to be ready to deal with the worst to come whenever it does happen. This leads hand in hand to the next item on the list, oatmeal, where Jack runs into a man who painstakingly plans out his life second by second.
I can't get the frozen food aisle in the next 3 seconds, so thanks, pal. Now I'm not gonna be able to have peas with my dinner this Wednesday.
Because Jack interrupted the man's tight schedule, we come find that the man never plans for these kind of contingencies, and he'll have to give up vital items on his own grocery list to abide by this routine. Jack then finds a 100-count pack of oatmeal and begins to imagine how much easier his life would be if he didn't have to worry about anything else ever again, simply by sticking to a safe routine of eating oatmeal every day. But of course, as we know, life doesn't work that way, and at some point, we have to be ready for the unexpected moments of life that exist outside of our routine. Jack realizes this too and decides against the idea of a safe, boring routine and goes for a mystery assortment pack of oatmeal, furthering the message of the song. Jack finds himself on the coffee aisle next, where he's immediately assaulted with the presence of a highly caffeinated woman who just loves coffee, doesn't talk about coffee.
I don't think I need carrots or potatoes right now, so I'll just leave it at that.
And how much her personal life has just been improved by sweet, sweet coffee. This one-sided conversation is only interrupted by the woman's realization that she forgot to pick up a kid from soccer practice.
How in the hell did that happen? Goodness, I'm so confused right now. That is wild. That is just wow. They have hazelnut toffee light roast.
This sends Jack into another anxiety-ridden debacle if he actually needs coffee.
Do I need you to survive?
He certainly wants it, but at what point did this want become a need? If it's not something that he actually needs, wouldn't he have enough self-control to decide he doesn't want something as addictive as coffee, simply to realign his own set of priorities? By the end, and despite his own strong desire, he decides the best thing for him is to get a healthier option, decaf coffee. Horrible, pointless, horrible decaf coffee. I mean, who's getting coffee for the taste of it anyway? After his adventure in the coffee aisle, Jack finds himself at his final destination, the cheese aisle. And it's here he finds himself facing his worst nightmare, a massive wall of different types of cheese. But more importantly, the position of having to make a choice. With so many options of cheese in front of him, Jack finds himself placed back in the position he faced at the beginning of the free sandwich booth. Which one should I choose? What choice is the wrong one? How do I know which one is right? It's here Jack begins spiraling into what he calls the 5 aisles of grief. Each stage he endures, Jack has to inch his way forward.
5 aisles of grief.
Denial, anger, bargaining, and depression all begin to set in within quick succession before he decides that he'd rather let the universe decide for him as a way to relieve himself of responsibility. A decision that leads to acceptance.
I gotta make something better than that.
It's here we find ourselves in a state of bliss with Jack as he realizes that, no, he doesn't have to be afraid to make a choice. It's just part of life and he can never run from that. In fact, there's so much joy you can get out of being confident enough to make your own decision, even if it may be the wrong one. Because despite the fact that we all have inspiration days and that we can never prevent it or the many ways that come, the ability to know what's best for us is to make a decision based on and it's not something that has to be met with fear, because even if it's wrong, those choices don't have to define you in any way, and you can always learn from it to make a better choice next time.
I know what I want to try. Strawberry, please. It's amazing. Can I try the other one? No. That's right. That was good.
And that, my friend, is the joy of shop.
Alright, that was another pretty good essay right there. Alrighty, I'm gonna go use the bathroom real quick. I use the bathroom. The bathroom. Hold on, let me get this final iron just before to see how much experience it's gonna give me. Dead way. 8. Ooh, that's not enough. That's fine. I'll BRB, fellers. Let me put on. The back again. Guess who's the back? Tell a friend. I've sat down. Alright. Pull up another video essay real quick. Essay. A Pina. An exhausted defense of angel dust. Oh, nope, nope. Rangatha. Nope. Ooh. Nah, I'm good. Just watch that. That seems pretty funny. Unpacking the death of color. Oh, we just want that one as well. We're just getting repeats now. I am an alien, my rocket's made from human bones and skin. Too big I suck it and I just don't understand how to become one of them. To be human, be rejected, pretending to be something you're not. What's going on? Take me to your leader, I would like to have a couple words, get your shit together. Why do humans keep on getting worse? I'd go back to space, but they've invaded out there too. Let's get over 20 minutes. Hope this narrows it down. Visual memory. Technology.
But that's what we did better than anybody else in the movie. We told a really good story. You know, we're the worst at it now, as far as I'm concerned. A good majority of movies that come out, all right, you pretty much know everything you're going to see in the movie by the first 10 or 20 minutes. Now, that's not a story.
This is Quentin Tarantino in 1994, criticizing Hollywood storytelling and predictability.
A story is something that constantly unfolds. I'm not talking about like this quick left turn or a quick right turn or a big surprise. I'm talking about it unfolds.
It's something that is relevant to this day, and not just Hollywood movies, but worldwide.
Alrighty, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. Hit me with your best shot.
Approach to his 2016 masterpiece, The Waiting. Just from this short quote, you can see how the point Tarantino made can be a driving force for some directors. He builds his stories carefully, letting tension, ambiguity, and surprises unfold slowly, so that every thread matters and every twist challenges the viewer's assumptions. After all, storytelling in film is one of the most important aspects, and that's what I want to explore. What does it mean for a story to unfold, and how does The Wailing do it? It remains one of the most talked about horror films nearly a decade later, thanks to its brilliant pacing, acting, and the countless ambiguities surrounding its ending. But instead of decoding symbols or explaining meanings, I want to focus on how masterful storytelling guides the audience, misdirects them, and constructs one of the most satisfying final acts of all time. Before jumping into the breakdown, let's talk about 4 major factors and techniques the director used to support the strengths of the story and manipulate the audience until the end. To make the analysis easier to follow, we first need to establish the basic structure of most narrative films. Stories usually begin in a stable, balanced environment. That balance is disrupted, creating conflict that needs to be resolved. By the end, the conflict is settled, and the new balance, though slightly altered, is restored. But not every film follows this pattern. Sometimes the story begins after the disruption has already happened, and sometimes balance is never restored, leaving the audience to complete the story themselves. The Wailing is unusual because it uses both of these approaches. It begins just as the killings start, and we are told that strange events had already been happening ever since the Japanese men arrived. In other words, we never see the balanced state at the beginning, and at the end, we never see a restored balance either. The film cuts off right before it, even tricking us for a moment into thinking conflict has been resolved, but more on that later. The important thing for now is that Na Hong Jin bends storytelling conventions from the very first minutes. He does this to keep the tension up until the last moments and throw the audience off the trail of the film's central mystery: what is happening in this village. Narrative conventions such as story structure, genre, and character prototypes are essential for viewers to follow along and form their own hypotheses of what's to come. But for Na Hong Jin, the goal is to obscure these and challenge the audience. It's a balancing act, walking the line between a story that's comprehensible and one that feels impossible to solve. One of the ways he does this is bending and blending genres. While usually described as a horror film, it has elements from many genres and subgenres: police procedural, occult horror, psycho thriller, slapstick comedy, demonization, season horror,
Escasez.
and subverted many tropes. They also blended Korean, Japanese, and Christian folklore techniques, creating monsters and elements that are not what we are used to. By blurring the lines between genres, one of the most important frameworks that would help the viewer suffers. None of the expected tropes are helping. They make the mystery even more obscure. For example, while watching the film, it's hard to tell what the entities we see are and whether they even exist. Are the killers zombies, possessed people, or simply rabid humans? Zombies are empty. Their only urge is to eat, like we see Park when he's reanimated. But throughout the movie, the killers also remind us of the undead in the voodoo subgenre of horror, being controlled by another evil entity like shamans or warlocks to do their bidding, and when their task is done, they become empty shells. The rules and existence of spirits in this world are also not clearly defined. This is partly because Japanese, Korean, and Western folklore of ghosts, spirits, and demons are all referenced at some point. And just like with the zombies, both we and the characters are left questioning the existence of the occult, as the film deliberately offers hints that can either rationalize the events as human actions or suggest a supernatural presence. This leads to the most important element in Na Hong Jin's approach to storytelling: the manipulation of the viewer. Narrative structure, style, and genre all shape the viewer's perception and interpretation of a film. If we take some of the points in the topic from David Bordwell, we can note a few major rules. 1. The viewer's mind is actively trying to construct a coherent story while watching the film. 2. They make hypotheses based on what they see, dialogue, genre tropes, or their cultural knowledge. In other words, what kind of movies and literature they consume. 3. These theories are constantly popping up in their mind. Sometimes their hypothesis is right, but sometimes it needs to be adjusted or outright thrown away. And 4. Filmmakers play with this knowledge to encourage the viewers to create false hypotheses. He argues that narrative art ruthlessly exploits the tentative, probabilistic nature of mental activity. Filmmakers create expectations just to destroy them. They encourage us to make assumptions just to punish us in the end.
Alrighty, I need to
just
go.
Like the characters, we are pushed into quick decisions in the passing of time. And Na Hong Jin is a master.
Oh, that certainly saved me a journey.
The Wailing is seeing and touching as proof.
Still 14.
All this is a metaphor for the film itself. The audience are in the same position as the characters who seek the truth and want proof. Do we know what we see is a dream, a vision, or an actual event? The director is constantly building on this, making us believe that something that we see was only a dream, and something that was a dream actually happened, until we are not sure about what to believe.
Just think of how early he introduces these dreamlike visions. In the second scene, there's already an ambiguous event, which we find out is only a reconstruction of how the protagonist envisions the story he's told in the police station. But Hong Jin is not doing this simply to make the viewer confused. He's conditioning us all throughout the movie. He teaches us things about this world contained in the film. Whether it's with editing, like parallel montages, the confusing visions, or the characters themselves, it all builds us up to the finale, where we have to follow his pace using all he showed us before. The last element that constantly misdirects the viewer are the red herrings. The term red herring in storytelling is a misleading clue, especially in a detective story, intended to distract the reader from the real solution. It's been a necessary tool for building mystery for centuries, and exactly for this reason, many authors have used it to their advantage. We're conditioned to these stories because they've been around for so long. And bringing back David Bordwell's explanation, the viewer's mind is actively trying to fit familiar frameworks to the story they see. So even if you aren't familiar with the concept of a red herring, while watching a film you probably expect the most obvious suspect to be innocent in the end. Otherwise, finding out who the murderer is too early in a mystery could make it boring. But if the filmmaker knows the audience will engage with this assumption, they can subvert it by making the red herring someone much less obvious, or by not using a red herring at all. The American TV show Columbo does exactly this.
Just one more thing, please.
Instead of focusing on the classic whodunit, a trope that has shaped detective stories for centuries, it shows you the killer in the very first scene. So the mystery comes from watching the detective piece together the method of the crime and the motive behind it. Director Hong Jin, on the other hand, doesn't simply subvert. He misdirects us by making everything ambiguous. Take his 2008 thriller, The Chaser. The serial killer is identified and detained very early in the film, and the story focuses instead on what happens after his arrest. A very unconventional move for a crime thriller. In The Wailing, the Japanese man is presented as the main suspect from the very start, an outsider who appears in the small town of Gokseong just as the murders begin. But because it seems so obvious, we eventually start to question it. Isn't this just the townspeople being xenophobic? All the stories we hear about him, and even the scenes where he appears as a demonic creature, devouring a deer in the forest or attacking a woman, seem more like exaggerated rumors or fevered visions than objective reality. The film builds on this tension and ambiguity, constantly balancing between making him look innocent and planting clues that suggest he really is the culprit. It gets even more confusing at the film's midpoint, when a shaman from the city, Ilgwang, arrives. He immediately reinforces the suspicion that the Japanese man must be the source of the evil. For some viewers, this feels like a confirmation. For others, just another misdirection. Layered on top of this is the presence of the mysterious woman in white, Moon-young, whose very name means no name. As the director said in an interview, the movie is terrifying because the father is trying to protect his family from something he doesn't see. Strangers invade his castle, yet he doesn't know if they are allies or enemies. Along with the film's brilliantly edited parallel rituals, these competing forces pull the audience in opposite directions, wielding both tension and excitement to find resolution. By the time we reach the final act, we are just as lost, desperate, and conflicted as the protagonist, Jong-gu. And then comes what feels like an ending. The Japanese man is killed. Jong-gu's daughter, Hyojin, appears to recover. For a fleeting moment, it looks as if everything has been resolved. The balance is restored.
So I could go and do that.
Finally a glimmer of hope, the happy end, until you realize that this resolution is an illusion. A red herring on the grandest scale. The story is far from over. There are still 30 minutes left, making it one of the most brilliantly constructed final acts in cinema. All these elements I talked about so far condition and prepare the audience for what's to come. The film trains us to notice small details, to question what we see, and to anticipate hidden connections. So when the final act arrives, with its 30 minutes of parallel editing across 3 stories, the audience is ready to follow it. What makes the final act unique is that, instead of unfolding through several sequences, it plays out as a single extended sequence that intertwines 3 parallel storylines. The thread of Jong-gu, the father, Ilgwang, the shaman, and Yang Yi-sam, the deacon. Until now, we've been left uncertain whether this world mirrors our own reality or hides something supernatural. But through these threads, the director finally unfolds the story, revealing more of the film's enigmatic world, while still layering twists and questions that stay with us long after the credits roll. I broke down the structure of the final act into individual scenes, marking each cut where the film jumps between the 3 storylines. For the sake of simplicity, I will call these 1, 2, and 3, with an additional 4th one which appears only for a minute, and I will explain later. I mark the beginning of the final act at 1 hour 58 minutes, where we see the family back at the house, and the sequence ends at 2 hours 30 minutes, and the credits roll. We can see Jong-gu's storyline is the most prominent. It makes up more than 62%, or 20 minutes of the 32-minute final act, while the other 2 are almost equally distributed at around 19%, or about 6 minutes each. But the way this sequence is edited makes this difference much less obvious, since the pacing is perfectly constructed. If you look at the distribution and rhythm of the scenes, it's clear why the sequence can keep up the suspense so well. The length of the individual scenes range from as short as 7-8 seconds to 3 minutes 45 seconds being the longest. But looking at each storyline separately, we see that storyline 1 averages 60 seconds, storyline 2 averages 1 minute 15 seconds, and storyline 3 averages only 30 seconds. Each fragment forces us to revise our assumptions or build entirely new ones, creating a relentless barrage that keeps our curiosity burning, leaving us uncertain of our choices and unsure of who, if anyone, we can trust. Jong-gu's thread is the central one, anchoring the sequence and asking questions to which the others respond.
그 외놈이 네 뒤로 기다리고 있어.
과연 죽었어?
죽지 않았어.
They revolve around it, but in different ways. Ilgwang's thread intertwines with it, not only visiting the same locations at different points in the sequence, completely avoiding each other, but also speaking to Jong-gu on the phone twice. The deacon's thread, by contrast, is separated from the others both physically and emotive. Yang Yi-sam
two more sugarcane somewhere.
He sees his own solution to the mystery, isolated in the mountains with the Japanese man, but it serves as a mirror to the interaction between Jong-gu and the woman in white. Both face unknown, mysterious entities who seem human and have physical bodies, yet the characters are terrified in their presence, sensing that something is off. We can even divide the final act according to the classic 3-act story structure, beginning with exposition, rising action in the middle, leading to the climax, and then falling into a resolution. Obviously, this simplifies things, but it still shows why the sequence works so well on its own.
Right.
All the elements, symbols, and ideas we've been introduced to are poured into these scenes, serving as answers,
where do I trade these?
callbacks,
그 귀신 본 적 있지? 그 목매 달고 주 낮은 집에서 봤잖여?
new
I just need
interpretations,
experience. That's all I
or mysteries
need.
that further misdirect the audience.
For some reason, this is
In the
making
first
it
few
so
minutes, all creatures
tedious.
are introduced. Then the balance is disrupted. In the first, Jungkook's daughter Hyojin disappears. In the
What?
second,
Sure, I'll
Hyewon
buy
meets the
these.
woman in white and must escape. In the third, Young Gi-sun receives a phone call that
Bro,
his uncle is also
the
affected by the curse.
experience.
Notice how each character faces unexpected situations that force them out of their comfort zone and into action. Jungkook moves aimlessly, first searching for the shaman, then for his daughter, desperate and confused. Ilgwang is scheming, but his plans are blocked, so he moves out of fear to escape the power of Moomyong before returning to finish what he started. Finally, the deacon moves with determination. He wants to solve the mystery and uncover what happened, so he returns to the mountains, to the house of the Japanese man. This exposition of their storylines turns into the rising action, which complicates the plot once again. This part features the back and forth between storylines 1 and 3, the meetings with the mysterious entities that build tension and gradually confirm or challenge the hypotheses we've built up so far. In this section, the audience is just as confused as Jungkook himself. We are manipulated from all 3 sides, and it's unclear who we can trust. Ilgwang is largely absent here because he has already sided against the woman in white, effectively representing the Japanese man's perspective. There's another element that strengthens the mirror between these 2 storylines. Moomyong tries to convince Jungkook and earn his trust,
그놈 말 믿지 말어.
but the Japanese man flips this, asserting that no matter what he says, the deacon has already decided he is the devil. Both approaches work equally well at making the characters question their beliefs. Here's where the 4th perspective comes in. The mother and grandmother searching for Hyojin witness her arrival. I separate these 3 scenes because they all happen without the knowledge of the other characters, setting up the climax while heightening the suspense. The climax is reached at the same time. In the first one, Jungkook sees the hairpin of Hyojin, another symbol introduced early on in the film, which shakes his trust and sends him running home. His actions lead to the demise of his family. The protective flower withers, and Hyojin herself is approaching to kill him. Meanwhile, in the third one, the Japanese man reveals his true form himself to the deacon. Opposites again. In one thread, Jungkook interprets evidence and assumes what he sees is true, an assumption that proves false. In the other, the Japanese man confirms what was previously assumed, revealing the truth. This mirror not only reflects the characters' perspectives, but also engages the viewer, who is interpreting and guessing alongside them. Remember how I said touching or seeing as proof is a metaphor for the film itself? It's enough to read the quote from the Bible in the beginning. It's the director telling us in advance how he will actively challenge our assumptions. In fact, the viewer can step directly into the character's perspective. There's no better scene to prove this than the one in the cave. The deacon enters, finds the stranger alive, and immediately accuses him of evil. The conviction is already in his mind, as it always was. Only he understands Japanese, and only he sees the stranger's true form, and he never leaves the cave. Now replace the deacon with the viewer. We are the ones entering, accusing, translating, and witnessing. We are the ones trapped. And after all, isn't it us he takes a photo of? He points his camera at the audience, at us, and takes the shot. All this is happening in our mind while watching the film, without us realizing it. We're not simply following the characters. The director orchestrates our assumptions, doubts, and fears, making the act of watching itself an intricate part of the film's suspense. After the climax,
Only 2 sticks for 1 emerald.
The deacon's storyline is no longer followed. Instead, Hyewon returns to show that he was an accomplice all along, just as the woman in white predicted. This is another callback to an earlier scene to show how the viewer's perspective changed. At first, we thought he was afraid to enter because of the evil spirit, but here we find out he was cautious because of the guardian. Meanwhile, she's powerless and defeated, as heavy rain pours down on the town once again. An element that has appeared 5 other times in the film, always as ambiguous as the other symbols. Is it the protective, cleansing spell of a guardian spirit, or the sign of the 3-horned Oni hiding in his lair in the mountains, wielding the powers of thunder and lightning? The film concludes with the dying thoughts of Jungkook, who slowly drifts into a dream that wakes him from this nightmare. With the protagonist and all the main characters seemingly dead, the story feels like it should end with an additional scene. But the director doesn't show us whether balance is restored, or if the killings will continue in the village. There's a deleted scene of an alternate ending in which the shaman and the Japanese man leave town together as the woman in white watches. In that version, it would be even clearer they work together, and are done with Goksong. The original title Goksong translates to Veiling, but it's also the name of the town. The film focuses on this single village, only one stop in the long journey of the 2 shamans. This also explains why we never witness the true beginning or end of the story. It was never meant to show us anything but the townspeople struggle against an evil force, and the guardian spirit who narrowly fails to defeat it. Cutting this scene doesn't leave us without answers. It gives the story power. The director wants us to decide what happens next. After giving us all the elements of the story, he lets us finish it the way we want. Whether the shamans are done with Goksong, or if the killings continue, whether the new balance is the victory of evil, or something else entirely. It's all up to the viewer to create one final hypothesis, to explain the terrifying and wonderful world of Goksong, a film that remains among the most intricate and unforgettable pieces of storytelling in cinema. When I'm looking for something new to watch, something I know will be worth my time, curation really matters. This is what I love about MUBI, a hand-curated streaming service with a constantly evolving selection of films from all around the globe. Whether it's iconic directors or new emerging authors, there's always something to discover. As a fan of Japanese cinema, I finally had the chance to watch films from directors I'd always heard about but never had access to, like Shinji Sonai. His 1993 coming-of-age film Moving is now streaming on MUBI almost globally. The film follows a 12-year-old girl whose parents are divorcing. Sonai takes us deep into her world through long, carefully composed shots and stunning, colorful imagery. The vibrant costumes and thoughtful framing creates a rich, emotional portrait of adolescence. Moving is a perfect introduction to Somai's style, showing the beauty and chaos of growing up in 90s Japan through moments both tender and intense. If you want to watch movies I talk about, or just find new favorites from the curator's picks, you can try MUBI free for 30 days at mubi.com/justonemorething. That's mubi.com/justonemorething for a whole month of great cinema for free.
Alright, we almost got it. We just need a bit more right now. Then we can make a decent pickaxe. I'm probably gonna end stream soon now, which is unfortunate. But it is necessary. I'm gonna get more wheat. That was yet another amazing video essay.
Monsters are curious things, aren't they? There's something equally terrifying and captivating about encountering a being greater than ourselves. Their presence enchants us. Their power pulls us closer to the unknown, where we come face to face with an entity our minds can't comprehend, one we've only heard from tales. What dost thou want? When it comes to horror, I've always felt like the odd man out. Growing up, my brothers and I watched every slasher and ghost story we could find on VHS, but most of them left me cold. I realized early on that I only connect with horror when it taps into something ancient and unknowable, fear that feels unexplainable, awe-inspiring and mythical. That's why I'm drawn to films like The Shining, Possession, Cure, and The Blair Witch Project. And it's why Robert Eggers' The Witch and The Lighthouse stand out to me. Eggers brings horror back to its roots, drawing on archetypal fears, folklore, and a meticulous attention to history. His films remind me of reading H.P. Lovecraft as a teenager, stories of cosmic terror and primal dread that lingered in the dark. With Nosferatu on the horizon, I really these first two films. I want to show how they complement each other, not just in their suspense and unsettling reveals, but in how they reconnect horror to something timeless and haunting. The two entities in these films, Black Phillip and the Lantern, are not just threats to the characters. They are the forces that control everything within their respective worlds. Think of it this way. In most stories, the starting point is when the status quo is disturbed, and the protagonist's task is to resolve it or create a new order. In horror, on the other hand, there's often the additional force far greater than the protagonist. One they must either
I'm still gonna need to repair this, and I don't have any more experience. This is unfortunate.
Too powerful to overcome, leaving no resolution, only defeat in the face of something greater.
We will conquer this wilderness. It will not consume us.
In Eggers' two films, the story begins with the characters leaving society, the safe haven of their communities and cities. They find themselves in isolated, liminal spaces, a clearing on the edge of a forest, or a desolate island in the middle of the sea. And these spaces
liminal.
A concept from Michel Foucault that describes places existing outside normal societal rules, where alternate realities unfold. In these heterotopias, the isolation and the surrounding nature create a gateway into the realm of the monsters. Here, societal norms and structures dissolve, and everything is governed by the presence and influence of the gods, or monsters of these worlds. Much like in ancient myths, humanity is left alone here, waiting and praying for God's response. And finally, the answer comes, not from the divine, but from a different power and different gods, offering their own form of transcendence. The forest is the home of witches and evil spirits, while the sea is filled with alluring mermaids and ghosts of dead sailors. These places are sacred, cursed, and ancient, and the characters are the ones intruding these realms. Therefore, in this new world order, we cannot speak of the sins of the monsters. These creatures are not necessarily evil, as their existence is not governed by our rules. Black Phillip's temptation of Thomasin is not out of malice, but because he needs her to do his bidding. Winslow is also not a victim who is smitten by the entity in the lighthouse, but a disturbed man who walks into the cave of a terrible beast and wakes it up. Furthermore, both films emphasize the inhuman conditions by introducing signs of famine. In The Witch, the family faces an unusual drought, where their crops wither away and their farm animals stop producing milk and eggs.
What is amiss in this farm? It's not natural.
In contrast, the characters on the island in the lighthouse contend with relentless rainstorms where the constant dampness ruins their supplies. Again, signaling that the world around them is not a human one, nor does it support human life. Through these physical conditions, Eggers reveals another layer of meaning, the psychological state of the characters, in which Thomasin and her family, like their crops, slowly fall apart one by one, unable to function as a unit. Meanwhile, in the lighthouse, everything seems to dissolve into a liquid state. Time, identities, and reality all become turbulent, distorted, and impossible to see clearly. If our human world with its societal structures represents order,
so much fun.
Films represent chaos. Places that exist before or outside our time, darkness before light, hell before the salvation of heaven. They are ground zero where nature and ancient powers remain undisturbed and uncontrolled. The forest of the witch and the seas of the lighthouse are not worlds of goodness, but neither are they necessarily worlds of evil. Black Phillip embodies the archetype of the big.
Whoa, you scared me there, buddy.
He promises riches.
How are you?
The mining and the crafting.
Very slow, I must say.
What server are you guys on?
I am on by myself. I'm just digging a big hole.
You should join an SMP I play on, for real.
Maybe. Just that, you know, the only things that I play on Minecraft anymore, I go on Hypixel occasionally to get my riches, and then I go onto this server from time to time, just to do whatever.
Well, shit, why not play on the SMP I play on? It's fun. There's gonna be a Halloween event in a couple of days.
Halloween event, nice. Actually, we just finished the Halloween build. Did you see it on Discord? I just made a Halloween build on mine. It was pretty nice. Pretty nice. Hold on, how do I get out of here? I'll show it to you on stream so you don't have to dig through Discord.
Alright. Oh, hello, little kitten. What you doing? What you doing, little boy? What you doing, little boy? Apparently being the crackhead is his answer.
Alrighty, it's right. Hold on. This is it. This is the Halloween build. I want to expand it a bit more, but this is what we currently have. Ugh. God, I can hear my bones cracking. Ugh. I have my desk that I have my PC on. It's too short, and I have to hunch down to play, and it's hurting my back.
Damn.
Anyway, there's Jack Skeleton and the girl. I don't remember her name from the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, where'd you put it?
It's on my stream right now. Just look upon.
Oh, I'm not on your stream. Could you?
Yeah, it's kind of a skill issue, bro. Hold on, let me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Nikita. Well, that was a nice interaction with Pepe. Well, let's finish this video essay, then end stream.
He ultimately becomes their eternal master in the afterlife. The evil witch archetype serves the devil as the priest serves God, but witches are dependent on their master. Their power derives from him. In surrendering to his will, they forfeit both their free will and their humanity. In contrast, the creature atop the lighthouse is far more obscure. It embodies the immense and unknowable power of the ocean, a cosmic Lovecraftian entity whose light enchants those who gaze upon it. Its purpose, like its form, remains enigmatic. Perhaps it grants forbidden knowledge, drawing the tempted into its mysterious world, yet it punishes them in turn, pushing them to madness. The greatest strength of Egger's monsters in my eyes is connected to a religious concept by Rudolf Otto, Mysterium Tremendum. It describes the simultaneous feelings of awe and dread in the presence of the divine or a powerful unknown force. This duality, something both terrifying and irresistibly fascinating, aligns perfectly with Egger's monsters in The Witch and the Lighthouse.
What's that like?
Both films step into this primal luminous experience where the monsters transcend traditional notions of good and evil. They are forces of chaos and power, drawing the characters in even as they destroy them. Eggers makes the two main characters confront the anxieties of different eras. In the old world, Thomasin and her family fear losing everything they have, that by failing to serve the Lord, their lives and values will be devoured by our power. In contrast, Winslow faces a modern anxiety, the recognition that nothing exists within us. We try to escape the void in our lives by creating meaning or value. For Winslow, fleeting escapes like sexual pleasure or alcohol offer temporary relief, but they only mask the emptiness at the center of his being. The director of Nosferatu and highly influential German filmmaker F.W. Murnau adapted Goethe's Faust in 1926. The story of Faust and Murnau's influence on Eggers becomes clear when we examine the characters in these films. In Faust, the demon Mephisto tempts the aging alchemist Faust into making pact. Through this bargain, Faust becomes young again and indulges in a life of pleasure, only to later regret his choices. Beyond the obvious connection of a pact with the devil, there's a more nuanced parallel, the duality of the old man and the young man. Winslow's desires mirror those of Faust. He craves power, status, and immediate gratification, his actions driven by blind lust and ambition. Meanwhile, Wake, the older figure, represents order and routine. Although Wake's characterization is far from idyllic, glimpses of his loneliness and yearning emerge. His attachment to the lighthouse becomes almost romantic.
And she's been a fine October.
white and a light-bodied woman.
This dynamic reflects Winslow's own fears. He dreads becoming like Wake, a lonely old man spinning tales of adventure while tethered to the unforgiving sea and the desolate island. Yet, the more Winslow resists this image of Wake, the more he comes to resemble him, ultimately falling under the same spell of the lighthouse's light. For both Thomason and Winslow, we can also observe the traces of the Oedipus complex. A Freudian term describing hostility and rivalry with the parents of the same sex. Thomason's mother, Catherine, is deeply suspicious of her, often accusing her of witchcraft and treating her as an outcast. This tension escalates until Catherine physically attacks her daughter, leading Thomason to kill her in self-defense. Similarly,
bro, get back in your fucking cell.
A figure of judgment and control. Winslow himself pushes back against this dynamic, shouting,
You ain't the president, you ain't my father. I'm sick of you acting like you is.
Just like Oedipus, Winslow ultimately kills his father by murdering Wake at the end of the film. Therefore, in these two stories, we see a parallel arc where the protagonists kill a parental figure, one film embodying the feminine and the other the masculine. As in his later works, both of these films are deeply rooted in research and draw inspiration from folklore and mythology as well.
You know, myth, religion, folktales, fairy tales, that's like all I spend my time invested in. I'm more interested in that than I am in films.
The Witch explores puritan fears and religious tales of the devil and witches, reflecting the paranoia of society haunted by belief in sin and spiritual corruption. Meanwhile, the Lighthouse delves into maritime legends and Greek myths, particularly the tales of Prometheus and Proteus.
Oh, someone joined.
Bring fire to humanity, reflects
No, they didn't.
I guess no one joined then.
It was all in your head.
Wow, that's a very unsatisfying plot twist. I hope that no movies I watch have that plot twist, because that would be very unsatisfying.
Wow.
Where did I leave all my iron? Am I stupid? Oh, there it is.
Are you playing Minecraft?
I am playing Minecraft, yes.
Will you 1v1 me on Minecraft?
Shit, 10 enchanting cost?
Here,
that's a
right,
scam.
Go to servers and do west.catpvp.xyz.
Give me a second. I need to put away my iron. Apparently I need more experience. Anyway, whatever. Let's head over. What was the thingamajig?
West.catpvp.xyz.
At west? What was it again?
West.catpvp.xyz.
Xyz?
XYZ.
Xyz.
What? Here, hold on. I'll just type it in VC chat.
1.21.3? That's like 6 versions away.
Wait, it shouldn't even have a problem with your version. Are you on like the very most recent with spears?
I am on the very most recent, yes.
You want spear PvP?
No, not yet. We don't have spears until the next update.
Do mcpvp.club. Let's see if that works. I don't think anything works on your version, man.
You could just go on Hypixel and have a duel.
Ew.
Like normal people.
Normal people don't use Hypixel.
I use Hypixel. I'm on it constantly, all day and night.
Alright, fine. I'll play with you on Hypixel, but first try PvP. Wait, mcpvp.club. Also, what's your username?
It is Waldozer.
Oh.
Alright, let's see.
I...
Failed to connect to the server. Incompatible client.
What did you type in for the IP?
mcpvp.club.
Oh. I guess we're doing Hypixel EU 1.8 PvP.
Hypixel.
Hey, have you ever played Hypixel Skyblock, me boy?
I have. I do. I'm a millionaire.
Oh, really? What's your crit damage? What's your crit damage?
Let me check. I don't check my stats very often. My Skyblock. Combat, mining, farming, fishing, where do I check that again? Oh, there it is. Crit damage is 113%.
Tisk.
Well, I don't do combat, man. I'm just a forager and a miner.
What's your crit chance?
93%.
Tisk. I have 381% crit damage and 103% crit chance.
So, man, I have a very low combat level. I just focus on money. I love money.
What armor do you have?
What is this called again? The Pure Young Dragon.
I'm using Unstable Dragon.
Alrighty, let's do this so I can end stream.
Wait, hold on, real quick. indulge me. How much, on. How many pieces of enchanted cooked pork chops do you have?
Probably none. I've sold a lot of my enchanted stuff because I needed to buy minions. Enchanted leather, that's the only enchanted thing I still have left.
Eve. Alright, hold on. Go on normal, party. Well, those are... Is it literally just WALDOSER?
3-3 afterward, yes.
While those are 33?
Yep.
It didn't work. Party. WALDOSER?
Yes. Oh, 2 L's.
Oh. Alright, send you party. I don't know why I'm the base ass skin. I think they might have banned my skin.
Alrighty.
Highly upsetting.
Well, let me lose real quick so I can fucking end stream. Challenge me.
What duel do you want to do? You want to do bridge?
What's the one where in classic, yeah.
Wake channels brought his indescriptive dominance over Winslow, his warnings about the forbidden light, and his questions of the ocean's chaotic power.
Let's show you my skin. Hold on, give it a second.
In the witch beyond the black hole symbolizing the devil, we also see brown hair mirrored multiple times.
Ew.
In pagans, brown hairs were considered sacred and mystical animals, believed to have connections to the other world and witchcraft. Many tales describe monster shifters, able to transform into humans. The hair, which is always watching the family, may very well be the witch herself, hiding and lurking around them the entire time. This mirrors the one-eyed seagull that haunts Winslow in the lighthouse.
God damn it.
Kills the cursed creature.
The souls of sailors.
God damn it. Fuck.
Storm that lasts for weeks, leading to the decay of both the island and the mountain's inhabitants.
I'm way better at more recent PvP, I'm not gonna lie. It still says loading terrain. I'm really good at SMP and Maze.
The characters as ruin. By succumbing to these sinful desires, they expose their weakness, opening the door for dark forces to invade their minds and wreak havoc. The witch and the mermaid are not independent entities. They serve as extensions or manifestations of their masters, the creatures that rule these cursed realms. And these masters are not only terrifying because they control their surroundings, but because they remain dormant in seemingly passive throughout most of the film. In both cases, Eggers uses red herrings to misdirect the audience.
God damn it, why'd I keep missing?
In which the titular character kidnaps and murders the family's youngest son, baby Samuel. She first appears as early as 8 minutes into the film and reappears multiple times, keeping our focus on the evil lurking in the forest. Yet, while the viewer fixates on the witch, the real danger is subtly foreshadowed throughout the story. The black goat, Black Philip, appears before the turning point.
Yes!
About it, and Mercy, the younger girl.
Alright, one more.
I'm just gonna stop using the fishing rod.
One more and then I gotta
I
quit.
wanna do one bridge after
Bro,
this.
I gotta go, man.
It doesn't matter. You were fine playing before I got here.
Yeah, but I was about to end.
One more bridge after this.
Making us question what poses the greatest threat to Winslow. And don't forget the film's biggest misdirection, the ambiguity of Winslow's character and perspective. The story follows the two keepers as they descend into madness, an idea Lovecraft often explored in his short stories, where contact with cosmic otherworldly creatures shatter the minds of those who encounter them. Eggers visually connects this madness to the monster of the lighthouse.
God damn it, you got the low ground. It's actually better than the high ground.
And again, an hour later when he's already on Ridge's style. By the film's second half, we realize Winslow is unreliable.
Because the hypotenuse of the triangle is longer than the sides.
Damn it. This confusion deepens as Wade plays mind games with him.
Alright, one more.
Sardonic and oppressive superior. Eggers adds to the disorientation with subtle choices. Both characters share the name Thomas.
Alright, do the bridge PvP real quick, and I'm leaving.
Symbolic cigarette and pipe in one scene, and makes questions and finally blur the line forever.
How long have we been on this rock? Where are we? Probably a figment of your imagination. This rock is a figment of your imagination too.
As Eggers said in an interview, it's intended to be ambiguous. It's intended to raise more questions than to provide any answers. I know that some people don't find satisfaction with that. And
fuck. No, I fell.
It's important to analyze what's real and what's imagined. The important thing is to establish that in both films, all the different parts are there to distract and confuse the audience, dividing their attention. Meanwhile, the true threats, like Philip and the lighthouse, linger in plain sight throughout the runtime, failed to ever fully recognize the looming monsters they truly are. This brings us to another important observation. Because these monsters are presented in their mundane and ordinary forms, like Philip as a simple farm goat and the lighthouse as an unremarkable building, Eggers doesn't need to show them explicitly. This subtle approach becomes one of the greatest strengths of their real sins. The simple confirmation of their existence is enough to reframe the films entirely. The theory that Black Philip possesses demonic powers is suggested earlier. Up to that point, we never actually see him do anything. It could easily be interpreted as another red herring, further emphasized when Thomason confronts him in the finale and asks him to speak. The goat remains silent.
Piss.
How the fuck did you manage that?
What dost thou want?
Black Philip's voice is finally heard. Even then, his form remains elusive, his face and body only partially revealed before we see him again as the black goat.
Bro, now.
Into the woods to join the coven. We are only shown glimpses of the monster. Tentacles and slime appear when Winslow spies on Wake at night or in his dreams. However, the ambiguity surrounding Winslow's visions leaves us uncertain whether these horrors are physically real or merely products of his fractured mind. The power of the unseen is amplified by Eggers' masterful use of music and sounds composed by Mark Corbin. This is especially notable in the lighthouse, where the boundary between diegetic and non-diegetic sounds subtly blurs. Prominent auditory cues like persistent foghorn resonate with the film.
Oh, I love how that just randomly fully
the chaotic nature of its will or the unraveling minds of the characters, depending on how we interpret it. At the end of the film, Winslow looks into the light. The audience never sees what he sees, and that's precisely what makes the scene so effective. We witness both bliss, horror, joy, and agony. His screams distort and the light burns. This parallels elation and acceptance feeble.
Why did you go up?
Which embraces her new life. The sinful man is punished for his obsessive ambition and reckless pursuit of forbidden knowledge. One is welcomed into darkness. The other is cast down by the light.
Bruh.
Bro, lock in. All those are. Thank you. Oh, never mind. Alright, that.
Fuck, I fell. I keep falling.
Jesus, dude.
I gotta block
I
out.
went into my inventory and everything there. Hey,
no.
How's it going?
Fuck.
I wanted to block you. I wanted to block you off. No. Hey. I'm gonna do a little trolling. My friend called me, so I gotta finish this up. Never mind.
Yeah.
Hey, man. That's not very nice.
Fuck.
Wait, hold on. Can I have a second to message him?
Yeah, you do that.
Alright. Oh, and you were advancing the entire time.
Yep, I didn't make it.
Cowardly tactics. You fool.
Hey, we had golden apples, I never noticed.
Oh my god.
Listen, I don't PvP very often, okay? It's just... no! No!
Hey.
Fuck.
Let me build a little something for you.
I remember when I used to be at least decent at PvP. That was like 8 years ago at this point.
Look at what I built.
What'd you build?
Wait, hold on, really quick. I won't go in. Hold up. Don't hit me. Don't hit me. The penis trap.
Well, I'm out of arrows? We have a limited amount of arrows?
And 5-0.
Okay. Well, that was that. Fuck. And he left. God damn it. Alright, everyone. That's the stream for today. I'll hopefully remember to put the links down below. Yeah, but I gotta end. Thanks everyone who watched, who stopped by, who's watching in the future, and goodbye.